Chapter 1189. What's wrong? Baijuan asked in a low voice. Aju said seriously, someone said that they like me. Baijuan was stunned for a moment before he smiled. His bright eyes and white teeth were handsome. Then, he took off his scarf and wrapped it around Aju's small face. Many people like you. Grandfather and Auntie Wang. Which one of them doesn't dote on you to the heavens? Auntie Wang just called and said that she made pea noodles for you. I'll fry it for you when we get back. Yes. Aju's entire face was surrounded by the red scarf, and only a pair of black and bright eyes were exposed. When she heard Baijuan's words, she nodded her head heavily and immediately perked up. Seeing that Aju was no longer listless, Baijuan was relieved. He held Aju's hand again. From afar, he could still hear him say, "If you're cold, tell me." Therefore, some people were right. Master Bai doted on Aju so much that it was a little infuriating. According to what Master Li said, Aju was almost 12 years old. She was not 2 years old, so how could she not know whether it was cold or hot? If everyone in the world raised children like Master Bai, how many mischievous children would they have to raise? Fortunately, only Aju could endure Baijuan's raising method. Unfortunately, Baijuan's plan to cook noodles for Aju was ruined on this day. Because the Bai family had a guest. Since it was a guest, of course, he could not just eat some pea noodles. Old Master Bai asked someone to brew the best Longjing tea. The living room was also filled with fresh fruit plates and dried fruits. There were even chess pieces in the center of the chessboard. His hearty laughter could be heard from afar. It's this move. Back then, I relied on this move to win against you. Yes, I'm not as good as you. The old man sitting opposite Old Master Bai had a dragon-headed walking stick in his hand. He was dressed in a well-made suit. Although his hair was white, he was very energetic. He exuded the demeanor of a businessman from the inside out. Who else could it be but Old Master Gu? When Baijuan walked in and saw the scene in the living room, he could not help but stop for a moment. Little brother. Aju was walking behind him. As soon as Baijuan stopped, the tip of the child's nose bumped into his back. She hugged her school bag and blinked her big eyes. Baijuan quickly turned his head and rubbed her little nose for her. This should be Aju, right? Suddenly he heard a clear laughter. When Aju raised her head, she saw a young girl in a floral dress smiling at her. The young girl was wearing a white cashmere windbreaker. She looked very sweet, very much like those popular girl groups nowadays. She was cute and pure, and it was easy for people's eyes to light up. Aju knew this person. When she was picking out a gift for her little brother in the mall, this person was also there. Hi Baijuan. Guro blinked mischievously. You definitely didn't expect us to meet so soon. Baijuan smiled. There was a unique indifference in his politeness. I really didn't expect it. By the way, Aju. Guro turned around and continued to say to Aju, there's another person who's here too. You'll definitely be very, very happy to see him. Aju tilted her head, her face full of question marks. Hey, little brother. If you stay outside and don't come in, you won't be able to see Aju's cute appearance. Guro put her hands behind her back and shouted softly towards the window. Even the smile at the corner of her mouth looked kind and gentle. Got it, Sister Ro. You're really long-winded. The lazy voice was still crisp, making Aju feel that it was inexplicably familiar. Then there was a loud bang. A figure in a black windbreaker jumped to the window, with one hand on the stone steps. His movements were very handsome. That figure was none other than Aju's deskmate Gucheng. He walked towards Aju with a smile at the corner of his eyes. You didn't expect me to come, right, little bean? Aju really didn't expect it. Her little head tilted again. Here, I bought it for you. Gucheng stretched out his other hand with a chocolate cream cake on it. Aju liked to eat chocolate. Baijuan only knew this. However, the feeling that the boy in front of him gave him made his heart tremble. This boy was very similar to that celebrity. Was it because of him that Aju wanted to hide it from him? Baijuan looked at the two people of about the same age talking there, especially since Aju was very familiar with the boy. Baijuan's slender fingers, which were hidden under his white coat, could not help but clench into fists. Even his deep eyes were filled with an unprecedented coldness. Guro was still smiling. When she turned her head to talk to Baijuan, she accidentally saw his clenched hand. She could not help but pause for a moment. Then, she followed Baijuan's gaze and looked over. It happened to fall on her cousin and a Jew. Guro frowned. She thought that she had seen wrongly. She must have seen wrongly. How could someone as arrogant as Baijuan show such an expression? It was as if he was jealous. However, thinking about it carefully, probably any brother who had a sister complex would not be able to see his sister being close to other boys. Thinking of this, Guro laughed again. She walked to Baijuan's ear and said, "My cousin and a Jew have a good relationship, right? It just so happens that we can be even closer. What do you think?" Baijuan turned his face, and his voice was a little cold. Even closer? Guro had never heard him talk to her in such a voice. She was about to explain. She heard old Master Gu laugh heartily. "Brother, look at these juniors. It's so lively when they gather together. Baijuan is still the calmest child. Even my granddaughter, who is being chased by others, is helpless in front of him. Ha ha ha. Grandfather." Guro reached out and held old Master Gu's hand. "Why do you say everything in front of grandfather, Bai?" As she spoke, she raised her eyes and glanced at Baijuan. Her thin skin was already a little hot. She looked crimson. Old Master Gu was puzzled. "You weren't like this when you were abroad. This is also strange. Gucheng, look at your sister. She's even shy. She likes me." Gucheng raised his eyebrows and smiled evilly. Originally, they were still happy, but Baijuan suddenly interrupted the laughter in the room. "Grandfather, has a Jew's pea noodles been cooked?" Old Master Gu's laughter stopped. Old Master Bai really couldn't do anything about his grandson. "I'm not eating noodles today. Let's eat something else. I promised a Jew to cook noodles for her." Baijuan stood up in a very indifferent voice and held a Jew's hand. "Grandfather Gu, I still have to cook for my sister, so I'll go down first." Baijuan's words and actions were very polite. But it was precisely because he was too polite that it made people feel alienated. Old Master Bai frowned and did not say anything. Just then, Auntie Wang walked out with the dishes and said hesitantly, "Young master, it's almost time to eat." Chapter 1190. Let Grandfather and the Others Eat First. Baijuan held Aju's hand and walked into the kitchen at the side without looking back. The kitchen was semi-open, and one could see what was going on inside from the dining table in the living room. Old Master Bai smiled and greeted the Gu family. Come, come, come. Let's eat first. That kid cooks noodles very quickly. Ruru Xiaoqing, all of you sit. Don't keep standing. I've long wanted to try Sister Wang's cooking." Old Master Gu was the first to sit down. He was not clear about the undercurrent between the children. The two old men had not seen each other for a long time, and were very happy. The white wine was filled with a plate of peanuts and a pound of beef and sauce. It was no different from when they were young. When old people got together, they liked to talk about the past. On the other side, the two old men were talking happily. On the other side, Baijuan had already washed the cucumbers and carrots. He was lowering his head and cutting them into very uniform cubes. The reason why Master Bai could cook now was all because of a Jew. One year, Auntie Wang had gallstones. After the surgery, she had to stay in the hospital for at least half a month to recuperate. There was no one at home to cook. Although a Jew was not picky about food, there was also a canteen in the courtyard. However, in summer, when a child ate greasy food outside, it would not be easy to digest. One had to know that a Jew never got sick when she was in the temple. Seeing that the child's round little face had become sharp, Baijuan was anxious. The only grandson of the Bai family, who had never touched the sun, opened the internet to search and prepared to cook by himself. The first meal was cooked by the two of them. A Jew loved to eat white rice. Baijuan first checked the instructions, steamed the rice in the rice pot, opened the refrigerator, and took out the dishes inside. In the beginning, he wanted to make something simple. At that time, a Jew was still young. She would give him whatever he wanted. The child even knew how to crack eggs. But there was always something on her little face. She was so cute that people liked her. Ever since that day, every Sunday, Baijuan would cook a meal for a Jew. Even after Auntie Wang was discharged from the hospital, this habit did not change. "Little brother, do you need to put in eggs? I'll help you crack them." Now, Aj's height was already above the kitchen counter. However, her cute expression did not change much. Her big eyes looked at Bai Juan, who was cutting vegetables sideways, and asked very obediently. Bai Juan smiled, and put the vegetables into the glass bowl. No need. But there's something that I really need Aju's help with. What is it? Aju had always liked to help her little brother. Bai Juan lowered his eyes and broke the egg into another bowl. Without raising his head, he said, "Help me put on the apron." Wear an apron? This seemed to be the first time that little brother had asked her for something like this. Aju nodded solemnly. With a small face, she seriously took off the apron hanging at the side and said to Bai Juan, "Little brother, turn around. Otherwise, I won't be able to put it on." All right. Bai Juan was wearing disposable transparent gloves and holding a white bowl in his left hand. The white bowl was filled with egg liquid. With a smile on his face, he casually raised his two arms and allowed Aju, who was much shorter than him, to put on an apron for him. He had to put on the front first before he could tie the back. Aju was very careful. Bai Juan could smell her hair when he lowered his head. Sometimes some things would never change. For example, the gentleness in Bai Juan's eyes when he looked at Aju. Perhaps he himself didn't think much of it, but others didn't think so. Bai Juan also could not control himself. He lowered his head, and his thin lips landed on Aju's head. Aju raised her eyes to look at him, and then reached out to touch her head. She was extremely cute. What about the back? Don't you want to put it on? Bai Juan raised his eyebrows and asked her. Aju raised the apron in her hand. Of course I want to put it on. Little brother, you have to be obedient and not move around. You have to cooperate with me. How do I cooperate with you? Bai Juan was amused. He used his free hand to wrap around Aju. He was not in a hurry to do anything. Aju stood in front of Bai Juan. In addition, Bai Juan's legs were very long. It looked as if her entire body was in his arms. The child was about to speak. A light laugh came from the other side. Grandpa, Bai wants lava vinegar. Bai Juan, you. Guro obviously thought that such a scene would occur in the kitchen, so she was stunned. Bai Juan reacted very quickly, and circled Aju with one hand. He put down the porcelain bowl in his hand and said indifferently, "What's the matter?" "Oh, I'm here to get something." Guro was indeed old Master Gu's favorite granddaughter. Even though she felt that there was something wrong with the situation in front of her, she did not say anything. Instead, she walked over nimbly with her hands behind her back. "I feel that you are very good at cooking. You cut it so beautifully. If I have the chance to try your cooking in the future?" Bai Juan did not answer. Instead, he asked in a very indifferent tone, "What do you want?" "Lava vinegar." Guro was not affected by his attitude at all. Instead, her smile became even wider. "Grandpa Bai said that your Bai family likes to eat this the most." Bai Juan did not say anything else. Instead, he lowered his head, took out a small jar from the kitchen cabinet, and handed it to Guro. Guro took it, and turned her head to Aju. "Aju, do you want to go with me? Gu Chung is still waiting for you over there." "I'll wait for you," Aju said as she helped Bai Juan put on the apron. She tilted her head and asked, "Is it tight?" "No." Bai Juan rubbed her head. The doting look in his eyes was obvious. "Do you want me to teach you how to cook?" Aju's eyes lit up. Then she nodded her little head heavily. In the future, if he was sick, she could also take care of him. Bai Juan had always been patient when it came to dealing with Aju. First, he let Aju stand in front of the kitchen utensils. Then, a hand came around from behind Aju. With the smell of fresh grass, he said in a pleasant voice, "Light the fire first. But in the future, when I'm not around, you can't light the fire alone. I can do it myself." Aju felt that she had been underestimated. Bai Juan bent down and rested his chin on her shoulder. He laughed softly. "Have you forgotten the last time you went into the kitchen and burned the wire of Auntie Wang's beloved rice cooker? Little brother, Willy Buddha said that if you see through it and don't say it out loud, you can still be friends." Aju clenched her small fists and said, "Don't always mention my dark history." Bai Juan smiled again. His fingers held Aju's hand from behind as he taught the child how to make fried noodles bit by bit. "Put the oil first, then put the egg in. Be careful that there is no water in the oil pot. Put it in slowly." After Guro took the jar, she did not leave. She just looked at the side of the youth's face. She had heard too many rumors about Baizhuan. Every one of them said that he was cold and not easy to get close to. But when facing his sister, he was like a completely different person. Even if they were siblings, wasn't this kind of behavior a little too intimate? Chapter 1191. This was the first time a Jew was eating with an outsider, so she thought that she should eat slower when eating. It would not be good if others mistakenly thought that the Bai family was full of foodies. Baizhuan naturally sat beside her. He poured the fried pea noodles with lava vinegar and mixed it back and forth before placing it beside Aj's hand. Eat. Tell me when it's not enough. Aju nodded and lowered her head to bite a portion of the noodles. The way she ate was very cute. Guro smiled and whispered to old Master Bai, Grandpa Bai, has Baizhuan and Aju always had such a good relationship? It's really too enviable. My cousin and I can't do it. When I was young, every time I saw him, I wanted to beat him up. Old Master Bai laughed out loud. Little girl Ro, you don't understand this kid. When I wanted to go to the mountain to see Aju at first, he was not happy. Later on it was Aju who was too good to him. Only then did this kid know what love was. Mountain? Guro asked in confusion. Grandpa Bai, why don't I understand? Old Master Bai put down the wine glass in his hand. Aju grew up in a temple on the mountain. When she first came to the Bai family, she was still a little girl. Now she is getting older and older. Time really does not spare people. What did he mean when she first came to the Bai family? Could it be that Aju was not a child of the Bai family? Guro suddenly paused for a moment, and Baizhuan's incomparably deep gaze appeared in her mind again. Micro-expressions could not lie. She had thought that it was a reaction of a brother, who was obsessed with his sister, to reject the boys around his sister. But now, Guro's fingers that were holding the bamboo chopsticks suddenly tightened. Soon she let go again. No wonder he did not have a girlfriend. So that was how it was. How old was he? What could a 12-year-old child know? Moreover, she had interacted with Baizhuan so many times. She knew very well how precocious Baizhuan was. There were too many traces of aristocratic families on him. When she was abroad she had seen his photo. At that time, he had just been admitted to the university, there not long after he had been in high school. It was enough to show how different Baizhuan was. He had been in and out of all kinds of places. She had even seen him discuss business with her grandfather. He did not look like a high school student at all. Instead, he was steady and sharp. It could be seen that his methods were not very clean. How could a child like Aju understand such a person? Guro lowered her eyes and took a sip of the fruit juice. She looked at Aju, who was still eating the fried noodles, and smiled gently. Baizhuan might have been able to tolerate this child's clumsiness in the past. But in the future, if they weren't the same type of people, they wouldn't be together no matter what. So what if they had secretly developed feelings for each other? Baizhuan was 17. People at this age were at the stage where they wanted to try all kinds of new things, especially boys. And Aju was only 12 years old at the end of the year. She could not even be considered a young girl. What would she know? How long could Baizhuan endure? Guro chuckled and put another piece of vegetable into her mouth. Then, she rested her chin on one hand and asked kindly, Aju, is my cousin especially noisy during class? Hey, Guqing did not eat much. He had also been watching the interaction between Baizhuan and Aju. Now that he heard Guro mention his name, his eyelids lifted. He still looked very cool. Aju replied, he doesn't make a fuss. He sleeps a lot. You two really have a good relationship. Guro sighed. You even know what this brat is doing. To be honest, what did you go to the mall today? Your brother and I saw you too. You were even walking hand in hand. Hand in hand. The person who revealed a surprised expression was old Master Bai. He first looked at Gu Cheng, then his gaze fell on Aju, as if he was asking. At that time, she was indeed pulled by Gu Cheng by the wrist, so Aju did not say anything. However, she did not want to continue this topic. This way, it was very likely that the matter of her buying a birthday present for her little brother would be asked. Therefore, she could only bury her head and continue eating the noodles. Gu Cheng understood Aju's thoughts. He lazily said to Guro, Sister, can you stop talking? It's just a shopping mall. You even had to make 4 or 5 calls to accompany me to the mall before you came out. You even said that it was cold outside. It's just a shopping mall. Alright, since you said so, I'll believe you. Guro laughed as she spoke. She said to Old Master Gu, Grandfather, look at how shy little brother is. Old Master Gu also laughed out loud. He couldn't help but look at Aju a few more times. He meaningfully said to Old Master Bai, this grandson of mine is very different to Aju. Old Master Bai also laughed. Old Master Bai also smiled, but it was much fainter than before. He said, Aju has been likable since she was a child. All the brothers in this courtyard like her. The little tyrant of the Li family, and the one from the Xiao family, always give Aju whatever good food and fun they have. This child is born like this. It's not strange that Gu Cheng is like this. What surprised Old Master Gu was that Old Master Bai did not follow along with his words. Instead, he pushed away his intentions. However, thinking about it carefully, the two of them were still young. It was indeed too early to talk about this, so he focused on drinking again. Guro did not ask Aju anymore. Instead, she playfully nudged Gu Cheng with her elbow. Tell me honestly, what did you and Aju go to the mall for? Nothing, it's the little bean she. Before Gu Cheng could finish his words, Aju took a small bean paste bun and pressed it into his mouth. Auntie Wang is very good at making this. Eat one. Gu Cheng had always been smart. He took the bean paste bun off his mouth and smiled. Okay. This boy was indeed very considerate of Aju. The two of them could be considered to have a common secret. Aju lowered her head and ate. She could not help but heave a sigh of relief. If Gu Cheng had said everything just now, then what would she do about the surprise she had prepared for her little brother? Fortunately, she did not expose herself. However, she did not know that when Bai Juan saw this scene, his entire body was almost motionless. Especially when Aju fed Gu Cheng the bean paste bun that he had picked up for her. Bai Juan, and even his fingers froze. In his memory, other than him, Aju would not feed anyone else. But now she was feeding a boy, and they even had such a tacit understanding. The fire in the depths of his heart seemed to be able to burn his entire body. Sometimes, Bai Juan always thought that it would be great if Aju did not grow up. If she did not grow up, she would always belong to him. But the reality was that not only had she started to grow up, but there would even be a day when she would leave him, because of another boy. Swoosh. Bai Juan stood up. His eyes were covered by his drooping hair, revealing only the curve of his mouth. I'm going to the kitchen to get something. Chapter 1192. Aju subconsciously raised her eyes, but she only had time to see Bai Juan's back as he left. Guro turned her eyes and stood up. She smiled and said, Grandfather, you guys eat first. I'll see what Bai Juan wants to take, and help him bring it over. After all, Bai Juan looked too normal. There was no trace of him being left outside. Other than Gu Ro who followed behind him, no one knew that Bai Juan's left hand was dripping with blood. Do you need me to help you? Gu Ro's eyes narrowed at first, then she laughed cheerfully. It was as if she did not see his left hand as she said something beside him. Bai Juan stood there quietly and did not speak. When Aju walked over with the little white cat in her arms, this was the scene she saw. She originally wanted to go over, but that scene looked very harmonious. She could see that the little brother had come out with an excuse just now. She originally thought that the little brother had come out to smoke. But now, it seemed that she had gotten something wrong. Aju looked at the backs of the two people for a long time. Then, she lowered her head and looked at her small palm. Finally, she walked upstairs with her ears drooping. On the same day, Aju asked herself the same question twice. When would she look the same age as the little brother? After entering the room, the voices outside became softer. Aju sat cross-legged on the bed. She changed her meditation position, somersaulted, and finally lay on the bed. Her long black hair that reached her waist was scattered on the pillow. She was so beautiful that it was unbelievable. When Bai Juan pushed the door open and entered, this was the scene he saw. In his own room, Aju obviously did not have the habit of wearing long pants. Her beautiful long legs were exposed outside, and she was only wearing a very short pure white t-shirt. She was so pure that it was fascinating. Bai Juan's mind went blank for a moment. The heat from her body was so obvious that it was difficult for him to ignore it. Before he could even react, he reached out and covered Aju with the quilt. His eyes became a little heavy. "Don't wear this in the future, understand?" Although Aju was at a loss, she was very obedient. Baizhuan carried Aju with the quilt and put her in his arms as if to distract himself. "Why did you come up halfway through the meal? Are you full?" Yes. Aju always felt that the little brother today was different from other times. It seemed that even his breathing was hot. Could it be that he was sick? Thinking of this, Aju reached out her hand and touched Baizhuan's forehead. "It's not very hot. What's wrong?" Looking at those incomparably pure big eyes, Baizhuan's hand tightened. "It's nothing. Human's body temperature will increase after eating." As he spoke, Baizhuan stood up. "Put on your clothes and go downstairs. Auntie Wang has cut the fruit that you like to eat for you." Aju nodded and was still very obedient. When she was eating the fruit, she was still worried that something would happen to Baizhuan, so she kept watching from the side. However, her little brother seemed to be too busy. After all, there were guests in the house. Adults like them had to sit together to discuss matters. For example, little brother and Gu Rou. Gu Qing looked at Aju from the side and lowered his voice. He said to her, "Little Bean, why don't you want your brother to know that you bought something for him? The day after tomorrow is little brother's birthday." Aju squatted at the side and teased the little white cat in a low voice. "I want to give him a surprise." Gu Qing raised his eyebrows in surprise. It turned out that the day after tomorrow was Baizhuan's birthday. He wondered if his cousin knew about this. "All right, that's all for today. We'll go back first." Old Master Gu stood up and said, "We'll go to the ski resort together tomorrow. You have to rest well." It turned out that the two old men had agreed to go on a trip together. Old Master Gu came to the Bai family at night to finalize the itinerary. Of course, Old Master Bai did not have any objections. After sending the Gu family off, he went upstairs to rest. Aju was also sleepy. She was very capable of laying out the quilt and other things. She placed the pillow at the head of the bed and even prepared the blanket. However, Baizhuan said that he was going to sleep in the guest room today. Aju looked at the empty seat beside her. She turned left and right. Finally, she hugged the little white cat and pushed open the door of the guest room with her pair of white and tender feet. For some reason, there seemed to be a very heavy breathing sound in the bathroom. Aju tilted her head to listen and took another step forward. "Who's outside?" Suddenly, Baizhuan's voice was heard. It was filled with a strong sense of hoarseness. Aju turned her body and hid in a corner. Could it be that he had heard wrongly? Baizhuan frowned and turned on the shower again. The water flowed down his back as if everything was normal. However, what puzzled Aju was that it was winter. Why was the little brother still taking a cold shower? After Baizhuan finished showering, he reached out and turned on the switch. He put on a white cotton t-shirt and shorts and walked out while drying his hair. Aju hid there and pressed her fingers between her lips, indicating for the cat on her head to be quiet. Baizhuan first leaned against the head of the bed and lit a cigarette. He only took 2 puffs before putting it out. Then he picked up the wine glass beside him. No one knew what he was thinking. After about 10 minutes, he finally turned off all the lights in the bedroom. He reached out and took off his shirt, revealing his well-defined abs. Baizhuan indeed did not look like someone his age. He grew up in the courtyard. Although he had not joined the army yet, there would be people who would specially train him during the summer and winter holidays every year. The knowledge he gained was no less than anyone in the military camp. All of this was reflected in his perfect and slender figure. At night, Baizhuan was definitely the Baizhuan that Aju had never seen before. His entire body emitted a fatal coldness and extravagance. Gradually, the night grew darker and darker. Aju estimated that it was almost time. Only then did she stand up and shake her slightly numb legs. Just like that, she carried the little white cat in her arms and tiptoed closer to the soft bed. Then she bent down and lifted the quilt. With her palms on the bed, she slowly crawled in with her head and body. Baizhuan was asleep. In addition, he had drunk 2 glasses of strong wine, so he definitely would not wake up so easily. Even if she crawled in, he would not notice her. Aju's thoughts were very practical. Baizhuan was indeed not as guarded as before. Under the moonlight he looked like a quiet prince. Even his sleeping posture had a natural nobility. However, when Aju was halfway through, Baizhuan's originally closed eyes suddenly lit up. His reaction speed could almost be described as a cheetah. In a flash, Baizhuan pressed the bedside lamp with one hand and lifted the quilt covering his body with the other. Chapter 1193. Oh no, she had been discovered. This was Aju's first reaction. Aju herself was not on guard at all. Her small face was fierce, and her expression was cute. She just arched her body and looked at Baizhuan. Baizhuan did not expect that the person who broke in would be Aju. He thought that it was a cat or something, so he was also stunned. Aju took advantage of Baizhuan's pause to lie down on the bed, and said very seriously, "I want to sleep in the guest room today." Baizhuan directly carried her up by the waist. There was a smile on his thin lips. "No. Why?" Aju's eyes would become clearer at night. Baizhuan's voice was deep. "Because I'm more dangerous at night." Aju reached out and touched Baizhuan's face. "It's not dangerous." Baizhuan couldn't do anything about her. His original intention was to carry her back, but he couldn't bear to let go. "Then be good and don't move. I've always been very obedient, so I wanted to ask you why you've been avoiding me recently. Is it because I haven't been sleeping well recently? Then I'll change it a little now. Can we sleep together?" Baizhuan's eyes trembled. His fingers smoothed Aju's hair. "You've always been very good." "That's good." When Aju treated him, she had always relied on him. When she was happy, she wrapped her arms around Baizhuan's waist and rubbed her small face comfortably. Only then did Baizhuan realize that his upper body was naked. His back suddenly stiffened, and his body also heated up. "It's so hot." Aju's forehead was still pressed against Baizhuan's heart. She opened her eyes to see what was wrong with Baizhuan. However, Baizhuan did not let her see. He hugged her and said in a deep and pleasant voice, "Be good and sleep." Reality proved that Aju was still very obedient. In addition, with Baizhuan coaxing her, she fell asleep in less than 3 minutes. The only person who did not fall asleep at night was Baizhuan. He looked at the person in his arms. His heartbeat was so loud that he could not hide it no matter how hard he tried. There was also that damn reaction that should not have gotten up. Baizhuan was glad that he did not drink too much. If he drank a little more, he was not sure if he would see something worse than a beast. Perhaps Aju would never know what he was thinking when he lifted the blanket and saw her. Baizhuan's eyes darkened. His eyes followed the moonlight and fell on Aju's pink and tender face as he leaned over. Aju always felt that something was biting her when she was sleeping. It was probably a mosquito, but she still slept very soundly that night. The next day, when the sun shone in, Baizhuan was still naked. His beautiful upper body and tight abdominal muscles were young and powerful. Aju was held in his arms with one hand. She was pure and innocent. Gu Rou and Auntie Wang had just pushed open the door when they cried out with a pale face. Aju was woken up by this voice and rubbed her eyes with both hands. Baizhuan's reaction speed was even faster. He raised the quilt and covered himself and the person in his arms tightly. He looked coldly at Gu Rou, who should not have appeared here. "Get out." Gu Rou's expression was very ugly, but she was also smart. She tightened her fingers and followed him downstairs. Auntie Wang did not expect Baizhuan to sleep in the guest room today. Even Miss was there. "Miss Gu, it should take some time for young master and Miss to wash up. Do you want to sit in the living room for a while?" Gu Rou took a deep breath and recovered quickly. There was still a smile on her face. "There's no need. I smell the smell of alcohol in that room. Baizhuan must have drunk yesterday and forgot that he was going out today. My grandfather and grandpa are already waiting outside. I'll have to trouble Auntie Wang to go up and urge Baizhuan later. I was also shocked just now. I didn't expect that the siblings would sleep together. Miss has been with young master since she was young. Young master has long been used to taking care of her." Auntie Wang smiled and said, "Young master and young miss have a good relationship, and young miss is also obedient. Young master is also worried about young Mississippi. If young miss doesn't sleep, Who knows how many times young master will wake up just to cover young miss with a blanket? Guro really did not want to hear how much Bai Shuan doted on that child. What worried her was that Bai Shuan drank yesterday. However, since they had already slept together, there was nothing to be surprised about. In the end, her opponent was just a child who had not grown up yet. If it was a 17-year-old girl, perhaps Guro's face would have already turned pale. But now, no matter how beautiful this child was, she was still young. She had lost to her physically. Guro laughed and walked into the off-road vehicle in the courtyard. Grandpa Bai Zhuan is still sleeping. Let's wait for him for a while. Grandpa Bai did not agree with Guro calling Bai Zhuan for him just now. It was just that she ran too fast, and he could not stop her. However, what made him feel strange was, Bai Zhuan has never liked others entering his room. Why isn't he angry? It's probably because he slept well last night, Guro said with a faint smile. There was even a hint of red on her face. Grandpa Gu laughed. I really can't treat them as children anymore. Look at them. A grown girl can't be kept at home. Grandpa Bai also smiled, but he did not say anything else. In the guest room that was dyed by the morning sun, Aju sat up straight half a beat later. She did not rub her eyes, but she was still not awake. Aju did not know why, but she had been very sleepy for the past half a year. Especially in December, she was even more sleepy. It was as if she was going to hibernate. For this reason, Bai Zhuan specially bought a string of Bodhi seeds for her and hung it around her neck. Although the weather outside was good, the temperature would not lie. It was more than 10 degrees below zero. It was really unbearable to not wear a down jacket. Bai Zhuan saw that Aju was very sleepy, so he stopped Auntie Wang's actions and did not let her wash her face. Instead, he wet the towel with hot water and tilted his body to wipe Aju's face. Then, he pulled over a small blanket and carried Aju downstairs. Master Bai had doted on the child countless times since he was young, so Auntie Wang did not feel that there was anything wrong with Bai Shuan's actions. Instead, she was afraid that Aju would be hungry on the way, so she took out a thermos box. Inside was cooked vegetable porridge and steamed buns. It was enough for 2 people. She softly reminded Bai Zhuan to let her eat all of these when she woke up. On the other hand, Gu Cheng, who was lying in the car, saw that Aju was wrapped up and went out. He really wanted to reach out and poke that exquisite little face. Aju was not completely asleep. It was just that her big eyes were dark. She sat obediently in Bai Shuan's arms and nodded her little head time and time again. From time to time, she would wake up when the car stopped. She would lean on the window and look at the endless snowy scenery outside. Chapter 1194. The juniors were sitting in an SUV, a top-notch Hummer. The interior was very bright and was most suitable for going to the snow and desert. The tires were very big, and the ride was very stable. Old Master Bai and Old Master Gu were sitting in another car. They both had their chauffeurs and bodyguards in front and behind them. There were a total of 4 cars. Old Master Bai's car was a red flag, and the license plate number started with red letters. Such a car was actually not worth much, but those who were really knowledgeable knew that the people who sat in red flag cars were usually veterans who founded the country. Gu Qing did not want to follow them. Compared to going out to see the snow, he preferred to go racing. He was still wearing the same black as yesterday, but today he had changed into a short jacket with rivets hanging on it. The new winter style of boy made his skin look even fairer. At first glance, he did look very similar to Bailey Shangxia. Aju stared at the back of his head for a long time, before remembering that he was her desk mate. Seeing that Aju had woken up, Gu Qing naturally had more fun teasing her. How about you go racing with me when we get there later? Aju shook her head and then turned her face to ask Bai Zhuan. Little brother, when will we get there? There's still more than an hour. Bai Zhuan asked in a low voice. What's wrong? I'm a little hungry. Aju touched her small stomach. Bai Zhuan smiled lightly and took the thermos box that was placed at the side. I knew you would be hungry. Auntie Wang has already prepared it. Don't drink the porridge. Eat a bun first. When we get there, we'll start eating. Aju nodded and began to eat the bun. Guro looked at her and smiled. Since Aju wants to eat, do you want to sit in the back? I still have a lot of space here. No need. Bai Juan's voice was very calm. It's fine as long as she's with me. Gu Ro's smile did not change. Alright, I have a tissue here. Ask me for more when your hands are dirty. After hearing Gu Ro's words, Aju realized that when the little brother gave her something, his fingertips were stained with noodles. Under normal circumstances, eating in the car was unavoidable. Aju had not noticed it before. But now that the bun was in her mouth, the taste was much less delicious. It was as if she was the only one eating in the car, while the others were resting. After realizing this difference, Aju stuffed the steamed bun into her mouth and puffed up her cheeks. She did not take the second one as usual. Gu Ro seemed to have prepared a tissue long ago. She had thought that it would come in handy. Unexpectedly, Aju on the other side actually picked up Bai Juan's hand and licked his finger. She licked the skin on his face. She looked like a cat. Bai Juan looked at her and rubbed her hair with his other hand. Gu Ro's eyes darkened as she retracted her hand. It seemed that the person who tied the bell needed to untie it. Even if it was a child, she could not be underestimated. They had arrived at their destination. It was Zhangbei, a place known as Heaven's Road. The snow here was very heavy, and the temperature was low, but the air was much better than in the capital. The sky was so blue that it was somewhat unbelievable. Large white clouds floated above, as if one could reach out and touch them. Old Master Gu indeed knew how to enjoy himself. Such a vacation Holy Land was invested in by the Gu family. It was not like an ordinary hotel, where one stayed in a high-rise building. Instead, he built a dozen classical wooden huts on the snowy ground. Each wooden hut was very large and had a beautiful design. One of the walls was completely transparent, and from inside, one could see the continuous snowy mountains and clear hot springs. The architect of the wooden house was French, and it was more of an exotic romance. There was a large fireplace inside, and the floor was covered with thick blankets. It was very comfortable and warm to step on. In such cold weather, no one would not like to wear them in such a house. 500 meters away, there was a ski club. Everything was very convenient. After lunch, the two elders were going to the tea house to drink tea and play chess. For this reason, old Master Gu specially instructed his worrisome grandson, Gu Cheng, "Don't bully your sister Aju, understand? Grandfather, I've always been very good to little Bean, okay?" After Gu Cheng finished speaking with an evil smile, he held Aju's hand and said, "Let's go. I'll take you to play." As if he knew that Aju would reject him. After Gu Cheng finished speaking, he immediately lowered his voice and said, "Didn't you see that your brother and my sister have gone to change into ski suits? The two of them definitely want to go skiing later. Why are you following them? Are you going to be a third wheel?" Aju wanted to push Gu Cheng's hand away, but she paused. She remembered the backs of the two people in the kitchen yesterday. In addition to her little brother's reaction these few days, even her reaction had slowed down. Gu Cheng took advantage of this gap and brought Aju out of the door. It was indeed very beautiful outside. Other than the tall pine trees, there was an endless stretch of white snow. Aju grew up on the mountain. She liked nature very much, especially in a place like this that still retained its original ecology. It made her feel even more at ease. "I'll take you to see my new pet," Gu Cheng said as he pulled Aju over again. He only stopped when they reached the backyard. The people here obviously knew Gu Cheng. All of them respectfully called out, "Young master." Gu Cheng held Aju's hand with one hand and lazily put the other in his pocket as he responded casually. It turned out that Gu Cheng wanted Aju to see a fierce Alaskan sled dog. It should have been an adult and was very big. She didn't know if it was because of the good food and the suitable temperature here, but she felt that the dog looked very scary. Its fur was very clean and as white as snow, but its neck was chained by an iron chain. Its eyes were very low. "My cousin found this a few days ago. Don't get too close to it," Gu Cheng said in a low voice. "It bites too hard, so it was chained." Aju still had her white cat on her head. The cat and the person looked at the sled dog. At the beginning, the sled dog was still growling at Gu Cheng. Although it did not bite Gu Cheng, it was not very friendly either. Now that Aju had walked closer, the growl actually became lower and lower. In the end, it used its big head to touch Aju's leg. Aju had always liked animals. She hugged the big dog and said to Gucheng very seriously, "It looks like little brother from back then. Can you sell it to me? I want to give it to little brother." Gucheng, who was still thinking of quickly pulling Aju away, was stunned. This Alaskan dog had even bitten a dog trainer before. Why was it as obedient as a cat in front of Aju? Thinking about it carefully, the little bean's affinity with animals was indeed surprisingly good. When she was in school, there would often be birds and the like landing on her hands. Could it be that animals also liked simple-minded people? Chapter 1195. On the other side, in the French-style wooden house, when Bai Juan changed into his ski suit and came out, Aju was no longer in the hall. He looked outside the door and frowned. He turned sideways and took out his phone. When he called, he heard the ringtone on the coffee table ring again. Aju did not bring her phone with her. But where did she go? Bai Juan turned his head and wanted to go to the room to look for her. At this moment, Gu Rou walked in with a smile. "Are you looking for Aju? She went out with Gu Cheng and hasn't come back yet." The relationship between the two children is very good. When Gu Cheng came out earlier, he felt annoyed when he saw those young ladies from the aristocratic families. Today he took the initiative a lot. "Don't worry, Aju won't be at a disadvantage with Gu Cheng. That guy knows how to play better than us." Moreover, when Aju went out just now, her eyes were shining. Her hand was even held by Gu Cheng. Bai Juan did not say anything. He put down the phone that was pressed against his ear and walked out. Gu Rou followed behind him. The corners of her mouth curled up slightly. "Bai Juan, let's go skiing too. Aju and the others should be having fun right now, and don't have the time to care about us. The ski club is in front of the house. I heard from Grandpa Bai that you especially like to ski. I'm a little stupid and can't ski well." Bai Juan still did not speak. His pure black hair blocked in front of his eyes, which only made his face very cold. That kind of coldness seemed to have merged with the surrounding white snow. There was an indescribable coldness. The snow finally stopped, but Bai Juan seemed to be a little reckless when he skied. The people in the club usually advised not to go to particularly steep places in snowy weather, because it was very easy for people with bad skills to get into trouble. However, when Bai Juan's figure came down from above and landed heavily on the ground, their mouths were wide open. It could be said that Bai Juan's posture and speed were even more professional than professionals. Even the ending was neat and handsome. However, no one knew why that extremely good-looking youth suddenly stopped. He just stood in the middle of the snow and allowed the wind and snow to climb up his hair. Gu Rou originally wanted to use this opportunity to ask Bai Juan to teach her how to ski. After all, she only believed in one thing from the bottom of her heart. At Bai Juan's age, as long as she gave him a chance, she would make him fall in love with her. At the very least, he would not be able to leave her body. Gu Rou did not think that this was a big deal. She liked Bai Juan, and she really did. She was not like Aju. A little girl who was not enlightened would only make Bai Juan unable to find his true self. A person like Bai Juan should live in a dazzling and colorful way, not suppress the sexiness that he should have released for the sake of a sister. She had heard people mention that in order not to let Aju know that he smoked, Bai Juan had to destroy the evidence on his body every time, and he rarely went out with others. He probably did not want to leave Aju alone in the villa to sleep. For the sake of a child, he had rejected those social interactions that were infinitely helpful to the future. Bai Juan did this, but the child did not know at all. Through these 2 days of interaction, she could tell that this Aju only knew how to eat and sleep all day. She did not know anything, and was very slow. Bringing such a person along would only drag Bai Juan down. What's more, the two of them had no relationship to begin with. It was reasonable for her to want to use another method to get Bai Juan. Gu Rou thought that this was probably liking him. No one had ever given her such a feeling. As long as she saw that person's figure, her heart would beat uncontrollably. Her mind would be filled with his face, even if he had always been very cold in front of her. But Gu Rou believed that one day, he would be warmed up by her. Habits might be hard to change. In the past few years, Aju was the one who accompanied him. As long as she accompanied him in the future, there would not be any problems. Guro waited in place with a smile. When Baizhuan finished skiing and walked over, she was the first to react. She held 2 cups of coffee in her hands and was about to hand one of them to Baizhuan. Sister, aren't you guys progressing a little too quickly? The person who spoke was Gucheng. He had one hand in the pocket of his windbreaker, and his face still had his signature evil smile. He really did not look like the maturity that a person of his age should have. His other hand was still holding a Jew, who had her head lowered. Baizhuan raised his gaze and fell on the hands that the 2 of them were holding. His hands, which were wearing ski gloves, could not help but clench tightly. The ski suit he was wearing was very big. It was a dark black coat, a fluffy hat, and a pair of windshield glasses. There was a refreshing aura in his handsomeness. However, this aura seemed to have become very faint in that instant. So faint that it was somewhat lifeless. Why didn't you take your phone? This sentence was obviously directed at a Jew. A Jew touched her small pocket and realized that her phone was not on her. Guro said, Baizhuan, don't be angry with a Jew. A Jew must have had too much fun and forgot about her phone. Let's all go back. Grandfather and the others should have finished playing chess by now. Baizhuan listened from the side, his mind in a mess. If it was in the past, how would he deal with such a thing? He would directly carry a Jew and make her remember to bring her phone next time. Otherwise, if he could not contact her, he would definitely be anxious. But now there was another person by her side. Moreover, Baizhuan knew very well that the current Jew did not want him to go over at all. She wanted Gucheng to accompany her. Otherwise, when she saw him, she would definitely throw herself into his arms. But today she did not. No matter how unwilling he was, Baizhuan could not deny this fact. The wind became a little stronger, and the snow and dust on the ground were blown up. The 4 of them walked one after another, and the snow would always make a sound when they stepped on it. A Jew looked at the back of the figure walking in front of her. She thought about it but still did not speak, because there was no need for her to speak. Someone had already walked to the little brother's side. Guro tilted her head and smiled refreshingly. You guys walk faster. If you walk slower, you won't have dinner. A Jew stared at the back of the figure again. No, that's not right. There were 2 figures now. They were very tall, and they were also of the same age. The little brother seemed to be very obedient to the other party. When that person said to leave, the little brother took a step forward. With this thought in mind, for some reason, her walking speed slowed down. This continued for a while. When she raised her head, the person in front of her had already left her by a large margin. This was a situation that had never happened before. In the past, no matter how slow she walked, the little brother would stop and wait for her. Or was it different now? Chapter 1196. Your brother walks really fast, doesn't he? Guro smiled as if she was complaining. He doesn't know how to wait for us girls at all. But it doesn't matter. Aju, I'll walk with you. This way we can still chat. In fact, Aju did not want to chat, so she did not speak. However, Guro did not give up. Instead, she put her hands behind her back and tilted her head to ask, Aju, what is your brother like usually? Can you tell me? Just do me a favor. You know that it's too hard for your brother to chase after me. But fortunately, he's still quite gentle to me. She still had a smile on her face, as if she hesitated for a moment before saying, Aju, there's something I don't know if I should tell you. But seeing that Baizhuan is sometimes very tired, so after thinking about it, I decided to tell you. You should also know that people born in the courtyard always mature earlier than other children, because they have some social engagements to attend. The last time we went shopping, it was actually Baizhuan who was dealing with my grandfather. At that time, we hadn't started dating, and I fell in love with him first. During this period of time, I realized that the most tiring thing for him was to go home, because there were some things that he always had to worry about. There were some things that he didn't want you to know, including having to care about what time you eat every day, and having to pick you up from school. During this time, he could have been free, but he didn't do that because you are his sister. In his heart, family will always be the first. He doesn't seem to be sleeping well recently. After all, there are many things that he has to take care of. For example, this time, you didn't take your phone out. He was really worried. When he saw me just now, his expression changed. Whatever you want, Baizhuan will definitely give it to you. He is just afraid that you will be sad. But Aju, you can't ignore Baizhuan just because you are his sister. He also needs time to rest and fall in love. My words may be a little straightforward, but they are also sincere. Family members should tolerate each other. Moreover, Baizhuan only has you as his sister. Aju opened her mouth. She wanted to say that she did not ignore her little brother. But when she thought about it, her little brother did spend most of his time with her. It was useful and useless. That was why her little brother was so angry just now. Aju lowered her head and looked at her toes. She was like a little turtle. She had always wanted to be obedient. In order to get that big dog for her little brother, she even promised Guqing to play fighting with him for a day. But in reality, perhaps all he wanted was to spend more time with others? After all, little gangster Li had also said that she did not understand people at their age. Aju thought that it would be good if she could grow up a little faster. This way, she might be able to get closer to people of their age. Even if it was just a little bit, it would be fine. Baizhuan did not arrive for dinner. It seemed that he had gone to sleep after coming back from skiing. Aju wanted to go up and call him. However, old Master Gu said, "Let your sister Gu Rou go up. She has experience in calling people." Grandfather. Gu Rou's face was red. Gu Qing picked up a piece of vegetable into Aju's bowl and said in a very low voice, "Didn't I tell you before not to be a third wheel? You've been by your brother's side 24 hours a day. He can't do anything bad even if he wants to. Little brother won't do bad things," Aju said seriously. Gu Qing chuckled. "Little fool, the bad things I'm talking about are things between couples. You'll understand when you grow up. Speaking of which, you're indeed in the third year of junior high school. Your enlightenment level can't be compared with the third year of primary school. But it doesn't matter. You're good like this." Things between couples? Aju paused for a moment. She remembered that every time she watched Conan, Cindy and Xiaolan appeared at the same time. When they were very close to each other, the little brother would always reach out and cover her eyes. At that time, she was still sitting in the little brother's arms and did not know anything. And over the years, other than the big dramas that Bailey Shangxia had acted in, Aju also watched some shows about animals, such as People and Nature. Of course, there were also some food channels, such as China on the tip of the tongue. There were also some divination variety videos. Aju was the most engrossed in watching this. Under normal circumstances, after watching it, she would say to Baizhuan, "The other party's divination is not accurate." During the summer and winter holidays, the Bai family watched these things almost every day. Master Li had once said that they had to be careful when they had a child at home. They could not watch any romance movies, even if they wanted to. It would be fine if it was a boy, but they had to be careful when raising a girl. Thus, the current result was the result. When she was young, Aju grew up in a temple. In her little head, other than fasting, chanting Buddha, and torturing people, she did not have any ideas. Later on, when she could recognize words, she would receive things and letters from her brothers. It could be said that if she did not go down the mountain, Aju would always take it for granted that she was a boy. After all, she was going to be the abbot of a temple in the future. Later on, finally, with the hard work of everyone, Aju changed her perception of being a girl. However, the nature of a child had already been developed, and with Baizhuan's protection, the 12-year-old Aju had indeed not come into contact with too many things in this aspect. Therefore, she was not clear about what Gu Qing had said. However, Gu Rou did not wake Baizhuan up. Seeing that Baizhuan was gone, and the atmosphere in the hall was so lively, old Master Gu let people go to bed early. When they woke up the next day, they would be able to see the sunrise from the other side of the snow mountain. The rooms were booked by Gu Rou previously. Everyone had a room. Aju looked at the room that belonged to her. It was very big, but it was very empty. This was the first time she lived alone after coming out. At this time every day, it was almost time for her to recite the Buddhist scriptures. However, when she crossed her legs, her mind was indeed blank. Should I go and see little brother? Aju pinched the little white cat's tail. Little brother didn't eat at night. It's not good for his stomach. I hid some food for little brother just now. I'll send it to him before I come back. I definitely won't disturb his rest. The little white cat meowed. It was low and pleasant to the ears. The night outside was getting darker and darker. It was as if everywhere was dark. This was a little like Bai Juan's heart. He had drunk a lot of wine. He lay on the sofa in the hall with his long legs and feet. He raised a hand and placed it on the armrest at the side. He looked at the endless snow outside with a cold expression. There were 2 bottles of red wine beside the sofa. One of them was already empty, and the other was half empty. Why didn't you call me when you were drinking? It was Guro. She had let down her hair, as if she had just taken a shower. She was wearing a set of extremely pure pajamas, and sat beside Bai Juan with a light smile. Let me have a drink with you? Guro said as she poured wine for him. Bai Juan, I like you very much. As she said that, she put down the red wine in her hand. Her fingers, which were dyed light red, pressed down on Bai Juan's hand. Her body also leaned over. I've never liked anyone so much. Bai Juan, we're the same kind of people. I know very well what you want. Chapter 1197. From the room in the corridor to the hall, there was only a glass window separating them, but it made a Jew, who was walking over, stop in her tracks. She could not hear what the 2 people inside were saying. However, she could see it very clearly. The 2 of them were very close to each other. They were so close that it was as if they were sticking together. There was a stuffy feeling in her chest. It was bloated. A Jew did not know how to describe that feeling at all. It was as if she had lost something. She thought of a lot of words, and every sentence was saying that she had taken up too much of her little brother's time. So, did her little brother also want to have more time to fall in love? A Jew lowered her head and looked at the tip of her feet. She hugged the little white cat in her hand and felt that her fingers were cold. She did not want to stand here. This thought was stronger than ever before. The moment the moonlight shone down, the figure of the underage person outside the window disappeared. Guro's aura continued to approach Bai Juan. Her lips were painted with a faint powder, and she smiled pitifully. It was as if she was offering her entire body to him. Bai Juan shook his head. Then his eyes darkened. He pushed her to the ground and looked down at Guro. His voice was very cold. I thought that Grandfather Gu's granddaughter would at least know what shame is. It seems that I still overestimated you. Guro bit her lip. I did these things because I liked you. You drank so much wine. Do you know how worried I was about you? As she spoke, she stood up again. I know that you are not happy every day. We are in the same boat. Bai Juan, you can take care of a Jew for a period of time. But can you take care of her for the rest of her life? She will only treat you as a brother. One day, she will fall in love with someone else. You can drink today, but what about tomorrow? Right now a Jew does not put her mind on this. You are so strict with her. One day, she will realize that the little brother she originally worshipped in her heart has other thoughts about her. When that time comes, how will she look at you? Bai Juan, be with me. I know what you are afraid of. Some secrets can only be better hidden when you have a girlfriend. Just take it as a try and give each other a chance, okay? And your body needs it too, doesn't it? You clearly reacted to me just now. Reacting to you? When Bai Juan heard this, he turned around and looked at Guro. He smiled coldly. Do you think I'm reacting to you? The only one who can make me react is that woman you're talking about. Haven't you already analyzed what I'm afraid of? Then you should know what I was thinking when I was drunk. It wasn't because you got close to me. It was because I always had this reaction. You should be glad that your surname is Gu. Otherwise, you can forget about keeping your hand. After Bai Juan finished speaking, he took a step forward. Guro opened her mouth again, her voice filled with emotion. Even if I have to be her replacement, I'm willing. Looking at you like this, my heart really aches. Even if I only have her in my heart? Bai Juan's voice was very indifferent. Guro nodded softly. I'm willing. Bai Juan looked at the endless snow outside the window, and recalled how a Jew was far away from him today. Perhaps one day, when she found out about this, she would hate him. He didn't even know how to make her stay. When Bai Juan thought of this, his fingers clenched. Guro saw that he seemed to be showing signs of loosening. She said in a low voice, As long as you need me, I will appear. whether it's to replace her or to prevent her from hating you. You should have seen that Aju likes to follow Gucheng. She might not be able to notice it now, but what does that mean? One day in the future, she will tell you that she is going to fall in love. What will you do then? Or do you still have this kind of thought like now? You should know what kind of person Aju is. The things she likes shouldn't change because of anyone, right? And by Juan, to be honest, when you are with her, don't you feel tired? There are many things that she doesn't understand at all. You are 5 years apart, and you will always walk in front of her. She will never understand you. Why don't you try? Maybe after a long time, you will be able to forget her? Even if you can't forget her, I will accompany you. I will definitely accompany you. After an unknown amount of time. Baijuan did not speak, but his black hair covered his eyes. Guro took a step forward and stretched out her hand. She looked like she wanted to hug Baijuan from behind, but before her hand could touch Baijuan's waist, the young man's voice sounded again. The young man's indifferent voice rang out again. He only said 2 words, "No need." Guro paused and looked at him in surprise. Baijuan, I don't want to. Baijuan lowered his head and picked up the red wine beside him. His tone was indifferent. I don't want to treat anyone as her replacement. Because some people could not be replaced. Even if he could not get her, he would not use such a method to insult his girl. His Aju had been sitting in his arms since she was young, obediently accompanying him. There was only one Aju in the world who would feed him. What a joke. Why did he need someone else to accompany him? Aju was the one who had taught him this kind of thing for a lifetime. If he wanted someone to accompany him, it should be his Aju. Guro looked at the tall and straight figure that did not let her touch him at all. Her hands were clenched tightly. She had never begged a boy so humbly before. How many people in the school were pursuing her? There were also those outside the school. Which one of them did not hold her in their hands? Why did Baijuan not accept her? He was clearly so drunk that he could not even walk properly. But he did not agree to her request. Baijuan had indeed drunk a lot. So that day, he did not go to Aju's room as usual and cover her with a blanket. The night gradually darkened. Aju sat in front of the wooden door and did not return to the bed. Her small face looked somewhat absent-minded. Her mind kept recalling the scene she had seen before. She shook it back and forth twice, and then again. But this time, no matter how hard she shook, she could not get rid of those images. She remembered what Guqing had told her about what couples would do. In the past, when her little brother kissed her forehead, she had never thought that it was a big deal. Her little brother had said that there should be a morning kiss when he went out in the morning, and there should be a good-night kiss at night. They both fell on her hair. But she didn't know that if her little brother did the same thing to someone else, she would be so sad. It was as if she was sick, and her chest hurt. She didn't want her little brother to find a girlfriend. But this thought was too selfish. It was really too selfish. Xiaobai, what should I do? Chapter 1198. Aju curled up her body and lowered her eyes. Her long eyelashes hid her fair little face, but her expression was still fierce. Woolly Buddha said that since you like someone, you have to fight for it. But at the same time, you can't destroy other people's feelings. Meow. The little white cat meowed and jumped onto Aju's head. Aju's fingers wrapped around its tail. How about this? Let's ask little brother together tomorrow. If he really has someone he likes, let's go home. Guqing is right. Little brother usually spends too much time on me. And I have never thought about whether he is willing or not. Everyone wants to be with the person they like. I can't take up so much of his time, just because I am little brother's sister in name. I know better than anyone that my surname is not Bai. Meow meow. The little white cat meowed twice in a low voice. It jumped down and nudged Aju's hand with its head, meaning that it wanted her to go to bed and sleep. Aju closed her eyes, but the uncomfortable feeling of breathing could not be dispersed no matter how hard she tried. If only she could grow up a little more. The next day, it seemed that everyone woke up very late, except for Guqing. He dressed up refreshingly and put on his ski suit early. He did not care if Aju was still sleepy or not. He directly dug her out of bed. Hurry up and wash up. I got someone to make a very delicious sandwich. There's no meat in it. It's suitable for you to eat. Gu Cheng was here. Everything was done with his identity, and his work was also done cleanly and efficiently. Ever since he brought Aju out, the servants in the hall and the people from the club outside were all on standby, just so that their young master could have a good time. All the services were top-notch. Gu Cheng even got someone to drive a racing car specially used in the snow. It was just right to bring the little bean out to enjoy the snow scenery. The car drove out and would not be back for a while. When Bai Juan went downstairs, it was 10 o'clock. He first went to Aju's room, but he did not see the person he wanted to see. Then, he went to the hot spring behind the house. In the end, the servant told him. In the morning, Aju and Gu Cheng went out and had not returned yet. When Bai Juan heard this news, his hand that was drinking water paused. BLK's mineral water bottle was almost deformed by his grip. From yesterday evening until now, 16 hours. Except for sleeping, the two of them were together. He had made preparations. What would happen if Aju met someone she liked one day? There were many situations. This included the fact that the first thing she did after waking up was not to look for him, but to look for someone else. As long as he thought of such a thing, he could not help but hold Aju's hand tightly. But now, Bai Juan realized that there was still a difference between imagination and personal experience. The former was just a little scared. As for the latter, every day felt like a year. Bai Juan had never felt that the hour hand on his watch was moving so slowly. He just stood there in the living room, his arm hanging by his side. The mineral water bottle fell to the ground with a dull thud. On the other side, Aju did not know why, but she was very sleepy. But in her heart, she was thinking about getting that Alaskan Malamute for her little brother. When she was young, Grandpa Bai had mentioned that her little brother had always wanted to raise a big dog. Later on, she came to the Bai family because of her small stature. She raised a large dog, afraid that it would pounce on her. After that, the little brother never asked about the large dog again. In fact, at that time, Aju had said that she was not afraid of being pounced on by the big dog. She could beat the big dog to the ground. But later on, the little brother still did not raise it. He said that compared to those worldly things, she was more important. He did not want her to have any accidents. Aju was very clear about how good the little brother was to her. Therefore, she had to get this big dog from Gu Cheng. She had to. Hey, if you're tired, lean on my shoulder and sleep for a while. Gu Cheng laughed evilly. Don't worry, you're still wet behind the ears. I won't do anything to you. Aju did not say anything. Gu Cheng drove the car in the snow and raised his eyebrows. What was going on? Why was it so quiet? When he stopped the car and looked back, he found that the person he pulled out had already fallen asleep again. She's really a little bean. Why is she so sleepy? Gu Cheng was helpless. He could only drive the car back to the wooden house. But this time, the speed was much slower. He stopped the car again. He took off the windshield on his eyes and threw the car key to the servant beside him. He bent down and carried Aju horizontally. So light? Gu Cheng muttered to himself. He always felt that the person in his arms was different from the girls he had touched before. However, it was quite interesting that she was so silly and cute. Gu Cheng walked into the hall, but he did not see anyone get up. He placed Aju on the soft long sofa. The sofa was covered with the softest plush cushion. When Gu Cheng put Aju down, he didn't know why, but his eyes seemed to be unable to move away from that young and tender little face. Gu Cheng had always known that the little bean was very good-looking, but he had never thought that the closer he looked, the more he wanted to look. He reached out his hand, and his body also moved closer. But before Gu Cheng's kiss could land on Aju's face, his wrist was pulled up forcefully by someone. There was a bang. Gu Cheng's entire body was thrown out by a strong force, and he crashed into the coffee table beside him. He narrowed his eyes and looked dangerously at the person who came. It was Bai Juan. The other party did not say a word. He just looked down at him. That gaze was bone-chilling, without the slightest bit of warmth. If it wasn't for Aju rubbing her eyes behind him, she would have called out in a daze, "Little brother." At that moment, Gu Cheng even felt that Bai Juan would kill him. He could clearly see that the hostility in Bai Juan's eyes faded bit by bit. Then Bai Juan turned around, squatted down and rubbed Aju's eyes. Are you still sleepy? Yes. After being together for a long time, any action would become a habit. After confirming that the person standing in front of her was Bai Juan, Aju subconsciously stretched out her hand. Without thinking, she wanted Bai Juan to carry her up. Her actions were very cute. Of course, Bai Juan would not refuse. He carried her up, and did not even look at Gu Cheng beside him. He walked towards his room just like that. After putting Aju down, Bai Juan first wiped her face. He could not bear to see the dirty look on his girl's face. You're so sleepy, but you still want to go out. Bai Juan lowered his voice and placed his fingers on Aju's sleeping face. His eyes quickly darkened. Is he important enough for you to change yourself to cooperate with him? Chapter 1199. Once one's thoughts were fixed, it seemed to be very difficult to jump out of it. No matter how smart a person was, they would always feel uneasy when it came to love. Even Bai Juan was the same. Aju did not know why she was sleeping so soundly. She did not wake up until noon. When Bai Juan turned to look at her wrist, he realized that the originally jade-like Buddha statue had started to become a little dirty at some point in time. The Buddha statue was specially used by him to protect Aju. Logically speaking, there should not be such a change. What was going on? Bai Juan stood up with a dark look in his eyes. As he walked out, he made a call. He seemed to be contacting the seller. The person who sold the Buddha statue also had some skills. Young Master Bai. From the first time I saw her, Miss Jio had a Buddhist affinity. Such a person was very rare in this world. She could not stand the turbidity of this world. But young Master Bai's righteousness could help her block these things. If young Master Bai was too far away from Miss Jio, this kind of situation could indeed happen. However, since there was a stain on the Buddha statue, it meant that it had blocked the turbidity for Miss Jio these days. So young Master Bai did not have to worry too much. After the call, Bai Juan walked back to the room. He sat by the bed and brushed his fingers across Aju's face. Then, he hugged her in his arms. When Aju woke up, she smelled the most familiar scent on Bai Juan's body. She happily grabbed Bai Juan's clothes. Just as she was about to say something, she felt her stomach swell. It was very uncomfortable. When she lowered her head, she realized that her back was stained with a small patch of blood. Aju was instantly stunned. When she raised her eyes, she happened to meet Bai Juan's gaze. Aju's small face was even more stunned. Of course, she knew what had happened to her. When she was in biology class, the teacher had told her. Therefore, Aju subconsciously wanted to stand up and run to the bathroom outside the house. However, Bai Juan held her hand. It was rare for her to be confused. There are other people outside. Put on my clothes before you go out. No, that's not right. You'd better not get up. If you need anything, I'll buy it for you. Aju was obedient. She waited for Bai Juan to get up. Bai Juan looked at her, and unexpectedly calmed down as well. He laughed softly, and pressed his fingers on her head. He rubbed it back and forth, and then stuffed her into the blanket. Wait for me to come up. Aju grabbed the corner of the blanket with both hands, and nodded obediently. His stomach still hurt, and his body felt like it was weighed down by something as heavy as gold. In the past, his teacher had said that those who came would be considered adults. Then, wouldn't she be one step closer to little brother in the future? Aju was happy, but it was too awkward to move. Her stomach also hurt, and she kept falling. Her body was cold and hot. She curled up and closed her eyes. Her fingers were clenched into fists as she pressed against her lower abdomen. But there was a smile on her face. On the other side, Lord Bai came out. But he didn't know what to do next. Without thinking, he dialed a number. The call was to Li Hailu. When a girl comes, what is more comfortable to use? Bai Juan's voice was very indifferent. Little gangster Li was still playing games. What do you mean by that? It's that. When Bai Juan said this, he had already walked out of the wooden house. Li Hailu bared his teeth. Fuck, my boss has become a spirit. What exactly is that? My period. As soon as Bai Juan finished speaking, the ski tourists who were still packing up in front all looked in his direction. Their expressions were very complicated. Li Hailu was so shocked that he threw the mouse away. What did you say? Don't repeat the previous question. Recommend a few brands to me. Bai Juan's voice became even fainter. Li Hailu stood up, and he didn't care about the game anymore. No. Why are you asking me such a question? I'm not a girl. Master Bai, do you think you're doing this kind of thing? No matter what, I'm still half a class belle. Just tell me if you know what's good for you. Bai Juan raised his eyebrows and sneered. Cut the crap. Li Hailu immediately said. I know, but this shouldn't be divided into brands. The cotton one is very useful. It's best to buy the lengthened one. Wait a minute, Bai Juan. Why are you asking me this now? Don't tell me you're planning to buy it yourself? I'm hanging up. I'll contact you when I get back. After Bai Juan asked his question, he planned to hang up. Li Hailu was still shouting on the other side. Tell me clearly. Hey, Bai Juan. Bai Juan. Fuck. Li Hailu saw that he could not call Bai Juan back, so he simply turned his head to Xiaolin, who was sitting beside him, and said excitedly, Did you hear that just now? Xiaolin covered his left face and gestured for Li Hailu to look to his left. Only then did Li Hailu remember that he was not playing games at home, but at an internet cafe. He tilted his head slightly and saw that those who were not wearing earphones were looking at him. Their meaning was obvious. They were basically saying, how could a big guy like you know so much about women's products in such detail? Li Hailu really wanted to bury himself. His lifelong reputation was ruined because of that. However, after being annoyed, he still had to gossip. He held Xiaolin's hand and did not care whether he was still fighting or not. Tell me what's wrong with Master Bai. Isn't it what you heard? Xiaolin was very calm. Someone who can make Bai Juan personally buy this thing. A Jew. Li Hailu slapped his forehead and was stunned again. Then, with a look of regret, he said, Why didn't we go skiing with them? We missed such a good show. Master Bai personally bought tampons. Thinking about that scene, it's funny. In fact, it was indeed the case. It was probably related to Bai Juan's temperament. It was indeed not appropriate for a person like him to stand in front of girls' products. Not to mention, he even bent down and carefully selected them. The salesperson beside him kept looking at him. Bai Juan did not avoid it. Anyway, he had already come to this point. He simply walked to the salesperson's side and coughed lightly. It was rare for him to speak in a blunt manner. I want to ask, where is the brown sugar? The salesperson really felt that the boy in front of her was so handsome that he had an indescribable feeling. It was that kind of youthful purity. When she heard Bai Juan's voice again, she was instantly captivated. She even specially recommended ginger and brown sugar to Bai Juan. Bai Juan thanked her and bought almost everything that he could buy. The salesperson could not help but have a gossipy heart. You bought it for your girlfriend, right? Bai Juan paused for a moment before saying, yes. The salesperson was so charmed. Buying sanitary pads for his girlfriend was simply too heartwarming. Chapter 1200. In fact, Bai Juan did not know much about this aspect. No boy would specially understand this. The matter of drinking brown sugar water during menstruation was something he had just found on the internet. Therefore, when he did these things, he really lost his previous speed. It was already half an hour later when he returned to his room. When a Jew saw Bai Juan enter, she immediately showed her head. Her small face was filled with guilt. The bedsheets are dirty too. If they're dirty, change them. Bai Juan walked over and rubbed her hair. It's just a bedsheet. Just by looking at Aju's face, Bai Juan knew that she was in a lot of pain. He did not let Aju walk at all. He bent down and carried her horizontally, not caring if his fingers would be dirty. Call me when you're done. Bai Juan stood outside the bathroom, only a door away. Perhaps only girls would understand Aju's feelings. When it was the first time, she would always be at a loss and feel a little ashamed that she did not want others to know. After changing out of her dirty clothes, Aju picked up the things that Bai Juan had bought for her. Her small face was red as she fixed it there before walking out. Bai Juan lowered his eyes to look at her and could not help but smile. Silly Aju, this is very normal. Don't be embarrassed. Tell me, are there any other discomfort? Aju shook her head. At this time, she really did not want to ask him anything. The more Bai Juan looked at her, the more interesting he felt. He picked her up again and placed her on the bed. I'll remove the bedsheets later. First, use the quilt and drink some brown sugar water before you sleep. Aju did not like to drink sweet things, but she still drank all the water that Baizhuan gave her in one gulp. Her cheeks were still bulging, and that expression was really more uncomfortable than drinking medicine. Baizhuan put the empty bowl aside and pulled the quilt over to cover Aju's body. He also lay down on it and helped Aju massage her waist with his left hand. Only then did he realize that no one had taught Aju this aspect. Thinking about it, the child grew up on the mountain. Later, after coming to the Bai family, he seemed to, "It's my fault. I should have noticed it earlier." Baizhuan lowered his voice. After so many years, only he knew how selfish he had been. Shaolin had noticed his possessiveness a long time ago. Shaolin had also told him not to use this method to educate Aju, because it was too unfair to Aju. He wanted to take up even a little bit of her time. He clearly knew that this was wrong, but he couldn't control himself. If Aju had a female best friend, she would not be as helpless as she was just now. At her age, she should have made many friends by now. However, there was no one beside her. It was him. She was nicer to others. He tried to attract Aju's attention. Every time, Aju would rarely interact with others for his sake. He was the one who had single-handedly caused this. Baizhuan lowered his eyes and gripped the quilt in his hand tightly. Aju turned around and looked at Baizhuan. She said seriously, "Little brother is not wrong." The two of them were very close to each other. It was as if they had returned to their childhood and were chatting face to face. After saying the first sentence, Aju asked the next sentence, "Can I kiss little brother?" Baizhuan thought it was a kiss on the face, so he smiled and said, "Of course." However, before he could react, the person in his arms leaned over and pressed her soft and warm lips against his. "It's sweet." Aju smacked her lips and smiled at Baizhuan, who was being kissed. Baizhuan clenched his hands tightly. She had not grown up yet, but more than anyone else. "Don't talk anymore. Go to sleep." Baizhuan took a deep breath and directly pressed that annoying little head into his chest. This silly girl. Did she know that lips could not be kissed casually? Aju blinked and was obedient. She was about to reach out and hug Baizhuan's waist. She felt that there was a sudden earthquake somewhere. It was the position of her chest. It was clearly the same as before, the most familiar contact. However, her body was a little strange. Her heart was beating so fast. And for some reason, she felt that she did not dare to look at little brother just now. Aju buried her face a little deeper. Baizhuan hugged her. "Be good, go to sleep." At the beginning, Aju did not sleep because she would always unconsciously count Baizhuan's heartbeat. She also asked the question that she had always wanted to ask. "Little brother, do you have someone you like?" Baizhuan's body stiffened. Aju's heartbeat also stiffened. She really wanted to hear a denial. Although even Aju herself did not know why she wanted to hear Baizhuan say no. It was probably because if that was the case, little brother would only belong to her forever. However, the answer Baizhuan gave her was a very certain word. "Yes." Aju moved her arm with difficulty. It came again. That kind of stuffy feeling in her chest. At this moment, Baizhuan directly covered her eyes. "Child, don't ask so many questions. Go to sleep quickly." "I'm not a child." Aju's voice lowered. "It would be great if I could grow up faster. That way, I wouldn't always be treated as a child by little brother." Baizhuan pushed her hair away. His eyes were dark, but he did not say anything. However, the real him, the selfish him, did not want Aju to grow up. Because when Aju grew up, it was very likely that she would not need him anymore. Just like the situation this morning, no matter how much he guarded against it, there was still someone else in her eyes. She did not know if it was because of her period, but when she got up and returned, Aju was much quieter and did not stick to Baizhuan anymore. Instead, she just sat there obediently, holding her little white cat in her arms. She thought about a lot of things. In the past, someone had said that she should not take up so much of Baizhuan's time, just because she was his sister. At that time, she could not think about these things. But now little brother said that he had someone he liked. She could no longer selfishly pretend that she did not hear it. Last night, she wrote an email to her family. Her mother's reply to her was also the same. If the other party already had someone he liked, then don't force it. Because no matter how much you liked him, it was your own business. Even if you got the love that had hurt others, it was not open and above board. Little brother should want to be with the person he liked. But with her around, he was worried about her. Because in his heart, she was still that child who always needed others to take care of her. A child. Aju lowered her head and looked at her hand that had not grown up yet. Her big eyes lost a lot of luster. Beauties, kiss me goodnight. Chapter 12:01. The next day, Baizhuan and the others still had to go to class. There were only 7 or 8 days until the winter vacation. Under normal circumstances, high school would take the exam first, and middle school would take the exam again. There was not much time difference. But at this moment, a very unbelievable thing happened in the high school department. Someone actually wanted to transfer in, and they wanted to transfer immediately. They were transferring to high school grade 3 class A. Not only were the teachers in the office surprised, but even some of the directors were surprised when they heard about this. It was already time for the exam. Why would they transfer? Moreover, the third year of high school was the most important year. Wouldn't it affect their studies if they transferred? The teaching standard of number 1 high school was one of the best in the country. They didn't come early or late, but they were stuck at this time. Then, would the students be able to follow their tutorials after they came? They had already finished teaching all the high school knowledge points when they were in their second year of high school. Now they were in a state of revision. Students who had not listened to the lessons would probably find it difficult to adapt. Under normal circumstances, as the school, they had to consider the other party's aptitude. Even if they wanted to transfer, they had to wait until after the new year. But this time, it was very strange. The school's higher-ups did not say anything and directly arranged for them to enter high school grade 3 class A. Really? Or is it fake? A transfer student? It's true. I just went to the teaching office and saw it. It's a handsome guy, very handsome, at the school bell level. Handsome guy? Come on, can he be more handsome than God Baizhuan? Even a few schools combined can't compare to him. The female student who revealed the news hesitated for a moment and said, "How should I put it? If you said this in the past, I could tell you with certainty that he can't be more handsome. But that person just now, he's not inferior to God Baizhuan. It's mainly because of his temperament. He's like a prince. You'll know when he comes." Is it that exaggerated? I don't believe it. God Bai is a player who can PK all the boys in the district. What kind of person can he? The student who was speaking suddenly paused, because outside the classroom, a young man in a white shirt walked over with a smile on his face. His hair was pure black, and his lips were very good-looking, especially his eyes. They were as deep as the legendary river of helplessness. When the light shone in, the reflection of the waves carried an indescribable beauty. However, there was a strong scholarly aura around him, as if all the noise could pass by him, leaving only the unique tranquility of a young man. With such an outstanding appearance, he would definitely attract everyone's attention. Even little gangster Li and Xiao Lin, who were still playing with their phones and discussing where to go after school, raised their heads. Damn, he's so long. Don't tell me. Li Hailu touched his chin and continued. He can really challenge Lord Bai. Where did he come from? Xiao Lin narrowed his eyes and put down his phone. At this time, the teacher walked in and greeted everyone with a smile. Come, students, sit down. This is a new student from our class. Let's get to know each other. Teacher, what's the new student's name? A boy shouted, then sighed and said, he's so handsome. Can he go to another class? The teacher burst out laughing. She adjusted her glasses and looked at the new student next to her. The young man took a step forward, a black bag slung over one shoulder, and wrote 4 words on the blackboard on the podium. The words were like the person as clear as jade. This is my name, Helian Qingchen. Li Hailu raised his eyebrows. A compound surname? Why did you choose such an ancient name? Helian? Hey Lindsay, you know a lot of people. There's no one with this surname in our circle, right? Indeed there isn't. Xiao Lin picked up the carbon pen next to him and frowned. Li Hailu chuckled. This is interesting. She can transfer to our #1 high school when the exam is coming. Isn't she from our circle? Could it be another family like the Gu family? You and I both know the Gu family. Xiaolin glanced at him. Do you know this? Li Hailu shook his head. He really did not know them. Logically speaking, although they were not familiar with the people in the business circle, they had seen them before. Why had they not even heard of this new student? Could it be that he really got in based on his strength? Wasn't it a little too unbelievable for him to come at this time? Qingchen, the previous seats are all full. The exam is in a few days. You should sit in the last row first. After the exam is over, we'll arrange the tables for the school meeting. The homeroom teacher pushed her glasses again. She seemed to be in an exceptionally good mood. When Bai Juan saw this, he said, "There's no need to guess. He probably got in through the exam." Why? Li Hailu thought to himself. He hadn't even asked around yet. How did Master Bai know? Bai Juan finished the last math problem and closed the book. His voice was indifferent. The homeroom teacher's reaction. When have you ever seen her smile at anyone other than me? That's because your logic is too abnormal. Li Hailu gritted his teeth. You always get full marks. Even Abbess Miju is bewitched by you. Bai Juan was very calm. Then look at how Abbess Miju is treating the new student now. After Bai Juan's reminder, Li Hailu noticed that Abbess Miju, who rarely smiled in a year, was in an excessively good mood today. Fuck, what's going on? Could the new student be Abbess Miju's son? Li Hailu was shocked by the homeroom teacher's enthusiasm. Xiaolin pushed the glasses on his face. They don't look alike. They look different. Li Hailu thought for a while. This new student is too handsome. If he really is Abbess Miju's son, it would be a little against biological common sense. However, Li Hailu admired anyone who entered with their own strength. What did this mean? This meant that there was another abnormal top student in the class. At the very least, he was on the same level as Bai Juan. Perhaps there was such a thing as aura in this world. This was because when the new student passed by, Li Hailu really felt a gust of wind. He originally thought that he would just walk over. However, when he walked past, his gaze fell on Bai Juan. I heard that you are the first in this school. His tone was very indifferent, and there was a faint smile at the corner of his mouth. However, in all these years, no one had ever dared to ask Bai Juan such a question. Li Hailu subconsciously frowned. It was said that with just one sentence, the new transfer student started a fire. Almost everyone in the class was discussing it. There were also people from the next class who ran over to watch. They were looking at none other than Heli and Qingchen. Hey, have you heard? There's a new student in Class A. There are calluses on his hands. He should have trained before. But I've also checked. He is indeed very ordinary. Li Hailu scratched his hair. I haven't felt so angry in a long time. The last time I was very angry was when I met a Jew for the first time. Bai Juan did not say anything, but his eyes darkened. Xiaolin raised his hand, indicating that he should not mention a Jew at this time. Li Hailu also noticed that the atmosphere was a little wrong. Master Bai, did you and a Jew have a falling out? No. How could it not be? Do you think we are blind? Li Hailu could not be blamed for being so cautious. The main reason was that with Master Bai's falling out, it was very likely that he would be the unlucky one. He did not forget how Bai Juan had moved to his house that year, and how he had come over. However, after so many years, the brother and sister had been on extremely good terms. How could they fall out just like that? Moreover, it was different from last time. This time, instead of saying that the two of them were falling out, it would be better to say that they were very much like a normal pair of siblings. That's right, it was really very normal. In the past, he and Xiaolin both felt that Master Bai doted on a Jew too much, and a Jew was like a little tail. Bai Juan could see her everywhere he went. Although she was very obedient, she was not to be trifled with. Who dared to say anything bad about Bai Juan? That guy could practically lift a person up with one hand. He still remembered that in the past, someone wanted to use a Jew to threaten Master Bai. He thought that a Jew was simple, and did not have any tricks up her sleeve. So he used food to invite a Jew to the darkest alley behind the school. A Jew did go, but it was not for the food. Instead, When she heard that person's words, she deliberately followed that group of people to teach them a lesson. In fact, the so-called group of people were some students from number 3 high school, who did not like Baizhuan. They probably did not expect that the person they had tricked was not a little white rabbit, but a little tiger. Although the little tiger was a little dull by nature, it was always unusually fierce when it came to matters related to Baizhuan. With the way a Jew protected Baizhuan, to be honest, he and Shaolin might not be able to compare. Baizhuan was right about everything. This master Bai also knew how to raise a child. But now no one knew why. But there was always such a feeling. A Jew was not as clingy to Baizhuan as before. Although she would still obediently follow him, she no longer took the initiative to get close to him. But if it was only a Jew who was like this, it would be fine. Even Master Bai's side was very strange. He actually learned to distance himself from a Jew. Why was this so? Li Hailu thought so much that his head was about to explode. But when he saw Baizhuan's absent-minded side profile, he was so silent that he could not speak. It made him unable to ask the words that were about to come out of his mouth. Could it be that the older they grew, the deeper the estrangement between them? Chapter 1203. Gucheng? The one from junior high? Master Li was confused. Isn't he just Gu Rou's younger brother? What does he have to do with our Master Bai? Shaolin glanced at him. He's a Jiz's deskmate, and some people say that he treats a Jew very differently. Li Hailu immediately came to a realization. He turned his head to look at Baizhuan. We should indeed talk to him. How old is a Jew, right? Don't let him lead her astray. Was that the main point? Shaolin was speechless at his brother and pushed Li Hailu away. Baizhuan also stood up at this time. He held his wallet in his left hand, and his tone was so indifferent that no emotions could be seen. It's time. What do you want to eat? Shaolin was clearly trying to change the topic. Li Hailu exclaimed, and was led out by Shaolin. However, as soon as the three of them walked out of the classroom, there was a commotion. Look at the person standing there. A beauty. There's someone so good-looking in our school? Idiot, look at the uniform. The top is different. It's not from our school. It's from the second high school. What the fuck? Isn't this the school bell of second high? That's strange. Isn't there a class in second high today? Why did she come to our school? Are you stupid? It's lunch break now. Second high school is not far from our school. Isn't it normal to come and take a look? Normal? Although our first high school has a high enrollment rate, our conditions are not as good as second high schools. What's so good about her coming to our school? Wait a minute, could it be that she's here to see the school hunk? As soon as the girl finished speaking, Gu Rou waved at Li Hailu and the others with a bright smile on her face. She jogged over with a backpack on her back. Behind her were two beautiful girls. Hailu, you guys are so slow. One of the girls spoke. She was indeed pleasing to the eye. We've been waiting for you guys for a long time. Gu Rou even said that we might not be able to meet you guys if we didn't make an appointment in advance. How is it? Let's go eat together. I heard that the food in your school's cafeteria is quite delicious. Little gangster Li was really unprepared. He did not expect that they would come back at all. He was instantly speechless. For some reason, the atmosphere was a little awkward. Gu Rou chuckled and said to the two girls, keep a low profile. After all, this is number 1 high school. Just follow them. Unfortunately, wherever Baizhuan was, people would always look askance. It was the same even when they went to the cafeteria. The middle school and high school students ate in the same cafeteria. The difference was that the high school students seemed to have more pocket money than the middle school students. They would go to the second floor of the cafeteria to order a small fry. A Jew liked to eat vegetarian food, and had always been easy to get rid of. Moreover, Auntie Wang doted on her. She always felt that the food in the school cafeteria was always a little worse than the food at home. Therefore, usually, a Jew would carry her lunchbox and go to the small stir-fry window on the second floor, with the little white cat on her head to wait for Baizhuan. It was the same this time. However, what a Jew did not expect was that other than Baizhuan and the others, Gu Rou and the others were also following behind them. The girls were all very enthusiastic. One by one, they greeted a Jew and whispered, "So cute." They stood beside Aju. Gu-ro had a smile on her face. She put her hands behind her back and said intimately, Aju, we meet again. Yes. The white cat on Aju's head was still wagging its tail. For some reason, it suddenly straightened its body and looked outside the cafeteria. Gu-ro did not pay attention to the animal. She smiled lightly and said, Aju, go over there and sit for a while. You carry the cat, so don't walk around the cafeteria. It's not convenient. Tell me what you want to eat. Your brother and I will go and order for you. No need. Aju held the lunchbox in her hand and didn't care much. I brought food. Gu-ro didn't say much. All right then. We'll order whatever we want to eat. Yes. Aju placed the lunchbox on the table. The white cat jumped down and stood to the side. Baizhuan walked over and said, If the food in the lunchbox is cold, tell me. It's not very cold. Aju reached out and touched it. In the past, the two of them would stick together whenever they met. Now, although they could still talk to each other, Baizhuan still did the same things as before. Even the lines were the same. However, Li Hailu and the others could feel the alienation between them. They still had to order the food quickly. After all, there was not much time to rest at noon. After eating, they still had to go back and lie down for a while. That way, they would be energetic for the afternoon class. Of course, no matter which school it was, the cafeteria was equivalent to a battlefield. Everyone lined up like warriors in order to get the best food. Usually at this time, when Baizhuan and the others appeared, although it would cause a commotion, it would not be like today, where many people stayed to watch. The arrival of Gu-ro and the other two girls simply ignited the gossipy hearts of many people. They even came to our school's cafeteria to eat? Could it be that the two of them were really together like the rumors said? Is one of the other two senior brother Li's girlfriend? No. I still want to confess. The girls from second high school are better looking than those from first high school. No matter how good looking they are, people still like Baizhuan. This era of looking at faces is simply enough. Although there would occasionally be one or two words of envy and jealousy, with Baizhuan's character, more people felt that the two of them were very compatible. There was no one who did not like to see the combination of a handsome man and a beautiful woman. There were a lot of discussions downstairs. After all, there were not many seats upstairs, so people only looked and did not say anything. When Gu-ro walked past, there was still a smile on the corner of her mouth, which won the favor of many people. Oh right, Hailu, I heard that there's a new student in first high school? A beautiful girl asked from the side. He looks quite handsome? Li Hailu raised his eyebrows. How did you know? This transfer student is extremely popular. That provocative sentence of Baizhuan has been posted on our school's Tieba. The girl smiled and said, Just listening to his tone is quite cool, but I still don't know what he looks like. If he provokes you again, what do you plan to do? In so many years, this is the first time someone's discussion can drown out yours. Li Hailu placed the stir-fried dishes on the table. Then let people talk about it. Gu-ro chuckled when she heard this. It seems that even our little tyrant has been angered by the other party. All right, don't worry about it. Hurry up and order some food. The new student still doesn't know who he has provoked. When he finds out, he will definitely regret what he has said. Chapter 1204. It's probably too late to regret it. I heard that he rode a bicycle to school. Riding a bicycle to school? Hee, it's really classy. The few of them discussed as they ordered dishes at the window. Although their voices were not loud, the mockery hidden in them could be understood by those who understood. After the three of them finished ordering, they came back first. Baizhuan and the others were still standing at the stir-fry window, as if they were choosing something else. It seems like it's a little crowded. Can you let this cat go under the table? After they came back, one of the three girls spoke. She did not have any ill intentions, but the longest table in the school cafeteria could seat 8 people. 1.5 of it was already used to store school bags. With the dishes laid out so long, there would definitely be people who would not be able to get them. Gu-ro glanced over. The white cat standing beside the table really took up a lot of space, so she said to Aju, if you don't eat the stir-fry, Can you hug your white cat and sit to the side a little? Although she said to the side, she was actually being polite. Guro clearly wanted Aju to go to the corner to eat. Aju raised her head when she heard this. She looked at Baizhuan, who was waiting for something over there. Then she called out to the white cat, "Little White." The white cat stood up and jumped onto her head. Aju directly picked up the lunch box on the dining table and walked to another table. She actually understood that some people would be against animals. After all, cats had a lot of bacteria on them. But Little White was different to her. Little White was the guardian that her mother gave her. From the moment she lived in the temple, Little White had always been by her side. Even her master said that Little White was extraordinary. A human and a cat had always eaten the same things since they were young. Aju could not simply treat Little White as a pet. Every time before eating, she would put a small bowl for Little White, and today was no exception. The people beside her felt that it was strange. A girl tugged at Guro's sleeve. "Look, that cat is actually sitting on a chair. Is it so human?" Guro smiled gently and already had a point. "The cat is gone, so you have a chance to get close to Shaolin. When we eat later, I'll give you a seat so that you can sit away from Shaolin." "All right." The girl blushed and lowered her voice. "But why are these people even bringing Baizhuan's sister to eat? How inconvenient is that?" Guro immediately raised her finger and tapped it on her lips. Then she turned around and looked at Aju. "Don't say such things in front of Baizhuan. He will be unhappy. Aju is still so young. She's still a child. They're both in #1 high school. He dotes on his sister, so it's normal for him to bring her along. Don't say any more." Even so, Guro knew very well that Aju should have heard everything they were talking about. Aju had indeed heard it. Even though the other party had deliberately lowered their voices, she was sitting behind these people. It was impossible for her not to hear it. However, she didn't seem to have any reaction. She just lowered her eyes and opened the big bag. Such a scene was actually very eye-catching. Baizhuan and the others couldn't see it from their position. The rest of the students eating on the second floor could almost feel the subtle squeeze. It wasn't very obvious. Perhaps only girls could sense it. Aju seemed to be isolated when it came to eating. On this side, they were chatting and laughing as they waited. Meanwhile, Aju and the white cat sat together at the place with the weakest light. Whether it was intentional or not, only those who had been ostracized would know that feeling. Clearly, everyone was very polite, but when it came to discussing topics and eating, they didn't bring you along. An old artist once said, "I really don't like the kind of person who doesn't know what happened and asks others to be more magnanimous." Everyone had times when their hearts were made of glass, but no one could empathize with them. Just like the current Aju. This was the first time she knew this feeling. It really didn't feel good. She looked at her lunchbox. In the past, it was the little brother who prepared a lot of things for her. When they ate, everyone was together. Now she was the only one. And it was obvious that because she was a child, she had already hindered these people. In the past, the little tyrant had said that when two people were in a relationship, the thing they hated the most was to be disturbed by others. The little brother was worried about her and took her with him at all times. But she would still be treated as a burden. Even if Aju was unwilling to admit it, had she really become a burden to the little brother now? It was clearly her favorite rice, but when she put it in her mouth, it lost its previous fragrance. Aju lowered her head and ate the rice in the lunchbox without saying a word. Her bangs covered her big eyes. However, at this moment, a pleasant and magnetic voice sounded from her left. "Student, is there anyone across from you?" Aju raised her eyes. Before she could speak, her big eyes shone with an unprecedented light almost instantly. That person looked at her with a smile. His deep black eyes seemed to overflow with warm water. Even the curve of his mouth was like a jumping wave, shining down through the sunlight. It was both familiar and nostalgic. "That's the new transfer student. Don't say, he's really quite handsome. Why did he come to the cafeteria on the second floor to eat? Did he go to the wrong place? The stir-fry here and the big pot of rice are not the same price." More and more voices came from all directions. However, Aju did not seem to hear anything. She widened her beautiful eyes and stood up abruptly. The first thing she wanted to do was to hug someone. The youth put his finger between his lips. His eyes darkened slightly, indicating for her not to speak. He also stopped Aju from the side. No one saw this action. Their thoughts were still stuck on why this transfer student would come to the cafeteria on the second floor. Only Aju nodded obediently. She had a cute little tiger face, and her big eyes kept looking at the young man. She didn't even eat. She just looked at him seriously, afraid that the young man in front of her would disappear in the blink of an eye. Was she dreaming? It was her second brother. Although he was different from before, he was an adult now. But it was really her second brother. Her second brother had become even more handsome and dashing. Aju tilted her furry head, looking like she was asking to be patted. The youth could not help but smile. There was an unconcealable doting look on his face. He reached out his hand with a faint smile, and was about to place his hand on her head. Just as he was about to touch her hand, someone grabbed his wrist from behind. It was Baizhuan. Chapter 1205. The two equally outstanding youths with outstanding temperaments looked at each other. Almost everyone could feel the sparks burning in their eyes. Behind Baizhuan were Xiaolin and Li Hailu. Almost in an instant, everyone in the cafeteria looked in their direction. The surroundings were extremely quiet. Guro also paused. Her smile froze on her lips. What's going on? I don't know. The two girls sitting next to her were also a little puzzled. Li Hailu directly walked over and said to Enchanting, "That's Baizhuan's sister. No matter what your intentions are for getting close to her, stay away from her in the future. If you have any problems that you want to solve with us, let's meet on the field behind the school. Let's one-on-one." Enchanting tilted her head and looked at the few people standing behind them. Her lips curled into a smile. Is this one-on-one? Baizhuan did not say anything. He let go of his hand with an indifferent expression. Then he turned around and said to Xiaolin, "You guys go eat first." At this time, Guro and the others also walked over. What's going on? Is this man being rude? Isn't this the transfer student who rode a bicycle here? He still has the money to eat on the second floor. I say, student, you should go downstairs. That's where you should stay. If you want to find a sense of presence in front of Baizhuan and the others, you shouldn't do it like this. The girls were talking, and the meaning in their words was obvious. Aju had always been obedient. Second brother told her not to speak, so she obediently stayed there. However, when she saw these people crowding around her, one sentence after another, every sentence was directed at her second brother. The child really could not take it anymore. With a bang, she pulled up the chair beside her and threw it at the person who spoke with a fierce face. Of course, the child knew her limits and would not hurt anyone. However, the thrill of brushing past the side of her face still made the few girls, including Guro, turn pale on the spot. Aju, what's wrong with you? What if you throw a chair over and hit us? Aju hugged the white cat with one hand and grabbed Enchanting's hand with the other. Her eyes were as cold as ice. It's you guys. Enchanting smiled and supported her forehead with her hand. She didn't say anything. She just let her younger sister pull her along. Her eyes were still filled with love. We are not welcome upstairs. Let's go downstairs to eat. After saying that, Aju did not even want the lunchbox. She was about to drag Enchanting downstairs. Little Gangster Lee really had an expression of fuck on his face. Aju, you didn't pull the wrong person, right? This person is your little brother's enemy. He deserves a beating, you. Get out of the way. Aju raised her eyes. The hostility in her eyes really shocked Li Hailu. Guro quickly tried to persuade her. Aju, don't be childish at this time. Also, Hailu, don't be angry. Aju doesn't have any intention of siding with outsiders. Everyone calm down. Hearing this, Enchanting smiled. She withdrew her hand from her younger sister's grasp. We don't need to go down to eat. Our seats are already here. How can we leave? Aju raised her head and looked at her second brother. If her second brother said she would not leave, she would not leave. She sat back down with her legs crossed. She held the cat in her hand and looked at her second brother. Enchanting was a person who did not put anyone in her eyes other than her family. He sat down with a faint smile and reached out to touch Aju's lunchbox. It's cold. What do you want to eat? I'll go buy it. As he said that, he raised his eyes and glanced at Baizhuan. After all, you were the one who helped me out. Aju did not understand why her second brother wanted to pretend that they had just met. However, her master had also warned her that before she was 12 years old, it was best not to tell anyone who was in her family. Could it be that her second brother was also doing this because of this? Aju did not understand. However, the joy of seeing Enchanting was greater than anything else. Aju had never eaten with her real family. Now that she heard that Enchanting was going to buy food for her, of course she was very happy. She immediately stood up with the little white cat in her arms. I'll go buy it with you. All right. Enchanting smiled faintly and looked in Baizhuan's direction again. Baizhuan's hands were tightly clenched. The box of hot milk in his hand was also somewhat twisted by his tight grip. His gaze was heavy as he watched this scene. Countless emotions churned in his eyes, like the night that had darkened. Guro looked sideways and deliberately took a step forward. Aju, be good. Come back quickly. This is a matter between adults. Don't make things difficult for your little brother. Aju did not seem to have looked at Baizhuan since just now. Now that she heard Guro's words, she raised her eyes and looked at Baizhuan with her big eyes. Little brother, since there are so many of you, just sit together. I'll carry little white. There won't be a seat even if I sit over there. It will only make you feel crowded. Aju, why don't you understand? This is not a matter of whether it's crowded or not. Guro let out a long sigh. You're really still young. There are some things that you still don't understand. Come over to sister's side first, okay? As Guro said this, the girl standing beside her was really a little annoyed. How can this child not even distinguish between friend and foe? Is there something wrong with her head? She had not finished the word problem yet. She saw a figure flash past her eyes. It was Enchanting. She was holding her neck just like that. Even her eyes were cold. What are you doing? Guro was the first person to shout. The students in the cafeteria also stood up. Master Li immediately wanted to hit her with a plate. There was a loud bang. The plate shattered on Aju's arm. This time, it was blocked by Aju. Li Hailu was stunned. His face turned pale. Aju, I'm fine. Aju was really fine. This little bit of impact was nothing to her. With a small face, she waved her hand. Baizhuan's heart ached terribly. Without waiting for anyone to react, he pulled Aju over. His handsome face turned sideways, and his eyes seemed to be brewing a huge storm. Shaolin, call Uncle Li and ask him to come over immediately. Little brother, I'm fine. Aju broke free and looked at Baizhuan. I don't know what this brother did to make you guys dislike him so much, but I can't bear to watch your girlfriends mock and ridicule this brother of yours. From the moment this brother came in until now, he only wanted to sit next to me and have a meal with me. He didn't do anything overboard. The cafeteria is a public place. Everyone has the right to sit here and eat. Not everyone can mock others just because they have money. Little brother, let's just leave it at that. You guys eat yours and we'll eat ours. Don't make me beat up the people on your side. Hearing this, Baizhuan's eyes suddenly shook. Even his throat seemed to be burned by Aju's words. Chapter 1206. Li Hailu was so shocked that he couldn't say a word. He didn't even believe that those words came out of the mouth of the adorable little Aju. Although there was a problem on their side, those girls' words were indeed a little unpleasant. But what did little Aju mean? Beat up the people on their side. The two words here included him, Shaolin and Master Bai. Aju, I don't like to hear you say that. Guro came over and said truthfully. Even if you are young, you should at least understand a little. Baizhuan Hailu, and us are all like this because of you. The Bai family has raised you for so many years, and has always been good to you. They have never been willing to let you suffer a little. Now that you are beating us up for an outsider, isn't it a little too much? Moreover, for example, if you were not Baizhuan's sister, would he have anxiously grabbed someone's hand when he saw a boy talking to you just now? There's no need. Aju interrupted her. She held the white cat in her hand, and the light in her eyes was very faint. There's no need for little brother to do this in the future, because I'm not his sister. Little brother just needs to focus on his relationship. I'll handle my own matters. Lee Hailu was struck by lightning again. What was going on? It felt like they were going to split up. Little Aju actually did not want Bai Juan to care about her. She even said that she was not his sister? Lee Hailu faintly felt a little angry. What was going on with little Aju today? Aju you? That's enough. Bai Juan's low voice was heard. Lee Hailu could not see his expression clearly, but he knew that Bai Juan was not feeling well. What do you mean by enough? What she said? I said enough. Bai Juan suddenly raised his eyes and glanced at Lee Hailu. The desolation that flashed across his eyes made Lee Hailu kick the stool beside him unwillingly. Aju and the others did not stay in the cafeteria on the second floor. After she said that sentence, Aju dragged Enchanting and left. Bai Juan looked at the two figures walking further and further away. His fingers were clenched so tightly that even his knuckles turned white. He turned his head and stared at the three girls behind him. Then he strode out of the cafeteria. His actions were really like the wind. What the hell? It's not our fault. Why are you getting angry at us? Someone muttered. Shaolin walked over, pushed up his glasses and said, in the future, please don't come to school to look for us if you don't have an appointment. If you do, don't laugh at us for being poor. That kind of topic is very low to begin with. Also, you're sitting at Aju's seat. Why did Aju go to another table? Perhaps Bai Juan was currently angry and did not have the time to think about this matter in detail. However, when he thought about it, it was not as simple as just being glared at. When the three girls heard this, they all felt a little guilty. However, this wasn't what they wanted. They just felt that it was inconvenient to have a child around. Coincidentally, there was a space over there, so what was wrong with letting her go over? They did not know that the transfer student would suddenly appear and greet Aju. They were innocent too. Shaolin did not have the time to care about what these people were thinking. What worried him the most was Bai Juan. This was because Bai Juan was really too abnormal. After coming out of the cafeteria, he did not say a word, nor did he show any emotions. He just sat on the bench in the shade. When the light shone on the side of his face, it was actually a blur for a moment. She finally feels tired of being controlled by me. As if sensing Shaolin's approach, Bai Juan said in a deep voice, she has always been like this since she was young. She can't tolerate any sand in her eyes. Our actions just now must have been very disgusting in her eyes. Shaolin thought for a moment and said, you didn't participate in those topics, nor were those girls. Aju's reaction this time was a little intense. Master Li did not know what to say at the side. He could only nod wildly. Even if that transfer student is a little handsome, he's still a stranger, right? Yes, those girls' words are not pleasant to hear. Even if Aju is not used to it, why would she still challenge us for a stranger? Bai Juan did not say anything. His pitch-black eyes were like a winter night, cold everywhere. Shaolin frowned. Hailu, don't say any more. In the end, it's still the wrong thing to do today. According to Aju's personality, she will definitely not like it. If those girls can cut off contact, then cut them off. None of them said anything. Who knew that they would think of coming to our cafeteria to eat? When Master Li talked about this matter, he also felt that it was troublesome. Bai Juan did not want to continue this topic, because no matter what, the scene of Aju protecting Enchanting would always appear in his mind. He knew that Aju was different from them. Just as his master had said, she was born with Buddha's fate. The more she was like this, the more she could not bear to see the chaos in the world. However, the person who was protected by her in the past was clearly him. But now, everything had changed. She even said that she did not need him. Bai Juan still remembered that when he was in Zhangbei, he had said that when she grew up, she would probably not need him anymore. He did not expect that these things would come so quickly. Time passed bit by bit. However, Aju was not even in the mood to eat. She just lowered her head, drooped her ears, and looked at the little white cat in her arms. Enchanting sat beside her. Her clear youthful eyes fell on her fair arm. She picked up a bottle of Yunnan white medicine and sprayed it on it. Her eyes were cold. This matter would not be over just like that. It was said that the onlooker had a clearer view. In addition, Enchanting was sharp. She locked onto the crux of the problem faster than anyone else. That guru, when the time was right, he would definitely let her know what regret was. However, Baijuan's reaction was very interesting. It did not seem like he only treated Aju as a younger sister. If that was the case, he would have to observe more carefully. After the incident just now, Helian Qingshan had roughly understood everything. Perhaps Baijuan's attention was all on him, so he did not hear Guro's words. The Bai family has raised you for so many years, and has always been good to you. They have never been willing to let you suffer a little. Now that you have beaten us up for an outsider, it's a little too much. But he heard it. They had always thought that the Bai family was upright, and had a red military spirit. They would definitely not treat Aju badly. In fact, it was indeed so. The Bai family was very good to Aju. There was no difference between being good and being biological. On this point, both he and his brother were very grateful to the Bai family. However, they ignored one thing. The discussions around the Bai family would constantly remind Aju that she was not their biological child. She was always an outsider. Chapter 1207. No matter how close they were still outsiders. So this was the feeling of living under someone else's roof. For so many years. Even in the letter, Aju had never told them about it. Therefore, they had always thought that Aju was really living a carefree life. He had grown up with his mother. His brother had grown up with his father. Although his father didn't really care about his children, he was still a man of great importance. At the very least, he would have a family member to accompany him. Only Aju was sent to the temple from the moment she was born. Helian Qingshan still remembered how much the whole family looked forward to the birth of her little sister. Her mother had also said that the only person she felt sorry for among the 3 children was her little sister. She was destined not to be with her father, and the others due to her innate Buddhist affinity. Perhaps only the child herself would know the coldness of the world. In the distance, the campus radio station was still playing a song. The lyrics were like this. When you are depressed, you will always feel the weight of loneliness. How you yearn for someone who understands to give you some warmth and lend me a shoulder. Helian Qingshan lowered her eyes and looked at her little sister, who was in his arms with a pair of big eyes. She reached out and hugged her. Sorry, little sister, second brother came late. A gentle breeze blew, and snowflakes fell. On the empty field, 2 figures hugging could be seen from afar. The side of the youth's face was always so good-looking. Helian Qingshan was always more meticulous than Bailey Shangxia. Her doting towards Aju could be seen from her every move. Time passed a little slowly, especially in the classroom. Baijuan sat in his seat, but Helian Qingshan's seat next to him was empty. The more Li Hailu thought about this matter, the more sullen he felt. However, looking at Baijuan's expression, he did not dare to say much. He could only comfort him. Aju must be too young. She doesn't understand what happened for a while. When she thinks it through, she will definitely feel that what she did was wrong. Maybe after she goes home tonight, the 2 of you will make up. Aju has always been sensible, but her reaction is a little slow. Don't mind it. It's not a big deal, right? Hailu is right. This matter is fundamentally a misunderstanding. Shaolin also felt that Aju was not sincere. Perhaps she said those words because of the girl's attitudes at that time. Little gangster Li's eyes lit up as he continued. Look, even Lindsay has said so. Who is the enemy and who is the enemy? Aju just hasn't reacted yet. Let the child digest it. She will definitely understand why we did that at that time. Moreover, some words were unintentional. Girls are just like that. Baijuan lowered his eyes and did not say anything. Shaolin patted him on the shoulder. Don't think too much. Aju has to go home eventually. When you pick her up in the afternoon, just tell her everything. But could they really say it out loud? When we are young, we tend to overlook the most important issues. You can't always think that a person won't get hurt just because she's pure and straightforward. Aju was indeed slow, but that did not mean that she did not understand anything. The more ignorant one was, the easier it was to feel uneasy. This was probably the difference between a 12-year-old and a 17-year-old. The latter had already learned how to maintain interpersonal relationships around them. while the former only had simple likes and dislikes. The class bell was about to ring in 10 minutes. At this time, a Jew, who was about to return to the classroom, received a call. The person who called was Guru. Her voice was still very pleasant. "Hello, is this a Jew?" A Jew had a small face and frowned. "No, I'm hanging up." Guru was speechless. To be honest, Guru was stunned for a moment after she was hung up on, because she had never thought that a Jew would hang up on her the moment she came up. Guru had prepared a lot of words, but they were all choked in the middle of her throat. She couldn't help but make a second call. A Jew didn't pick up. Enchanting raised his eyebrows at the side. Guru's eyes gradually darkened as she made the call. Originally, she thought that the other party was just a junior high school student who didn't know anything. She didn't expect that in some aspects, she actually underestimated the other party. Her phone kept ringing. A Jew didn't pick it up, but Enchanting smiled and tapped on it for her. Guru was about to speak. Enchanting swiped to the left and hung up. Guru was speechless. What the hell was going on? A Jew also looked to the side. There was still a white cat on her head. She didn't understand why her second brother would do such a thing. Enchanting's lips curled up. "Little sister, remember, driving a person crazy is not to not pick up her call, but to not give the other party a chance to speak after picking up. Of course, after playing 3 times, we can still listen to what she wants to say." A Jew nodded cutely. She was really using her second brother's words. Therefore, when Guru called for the 3rd time, she quickly swiped it open. She only heard the other party say the word "me" before hanging up again. "Guru." Huh. Guru was really a little embarrassed. One had to know that she was a real business child. Compared to the girls who appeared by Baijuan's side before, not only did she have methods, but she was also born with self-cultivation. She liked Baijuan. Other than being desperate in her pursuit, a large part of the reason was that she felt that a little girl like a Jew was not worthy of Baijuan at all. However, Guru really did not expect that the other party would continuously hang up on her. Once or twice, she could treat it as if she had pressed the wrong button. This time, it was a total of 3 times. It was obvious that she had done it on purpose. Guru gripped the white iPhone in her hand tightly, and the expression on her face became ferocious. "Guru, what's wrong with you?" Beside her stood the girl who had followed her to number 1 high school. Guru only came back to her senses when she heard her friend's words. She adjusted her facial expression and smiled. "Nothing. It's just that Baijuan's sister doesn't really want to pick up my call. That insensible junior high school student. Why do you care about her?" One of the girls was very angry. Guru smiled and said, "Don't be like this. No matter what, she is Baijuan's sister. Master Li and Shaolin also have to take care of her. I'll give her another explanation." This was Guru's brilliance. She had never been bad about a Jew. Every time, she always expressed that a Jew was still young and insensible. Over time, this kind of thinking would subtly influence everyone's thinking. This was a common method used by businessmen. Guru had been by old Master Gu's side all year round, so this kind of method had become her most normal life. In this way, it really seemed that a Jew was insensible. Guru was already prepared to be hung up on again, but this time, the other party actually picked up. Chapter 1208. Hello. After hearing the voice, Guru was stunned for a moment before she smiled and said, "A Jew, it's me, your sister Guru." "Yes, I know it's you. In other words, I know it's you, so I hung up the phone many times?" Guru felt that the breath in her chest was even more suffocating. She took a deep breath and said, "A Jew, I know you're still angry with me because of what happened today, but there's one thing that you really have to think about seriously. A Jew, there's no one else around us now. Ask yourself, how does the Bai family treat you? How does Baijuan treat you? Everyone grows up day by day. Today, you publicly embarrassed your little brother for such a random person who appeared out of nowhere. Have you ever thought about how he would face his good friends and us? I'm not calling to blame you. I just want to tell you that your little brother is not feeling well either. I know that you have a bad temper. After all, you're still young. It's normal that you can't control yourself sometimes. But under such circumstances, you threw a chair at us without saying anything. Aju, to put it bluntly, it's fine for you to do this to us. But the Bai family has raised you for so many years. Bai Juan thinks about you for everything. At the very least, you have to know how to be grateful. Are you done? Aju's eyes were clear. She lowered her head slightly, revealing her furry little head. It's not up to an outsider like you to discuss the matter between me and the Bai family, Gu Rou exclaimed aggrievedly. Aju, I don't mean anything else. I just hope that you can reconcile with your brother as soon as possible. Otherwise, you won't be comfortable living in the Bai family, right? It's not good to be at odds with Bai Juan like this. After all, other than the Bai family, you can only return to the mountains. Helian Qingshan heard all of this. Aju was not 12 years old, so he could not take her away. 12 years was the natal year. Only when the zodiac was counted could one be considered to have reached the Mahayana realm. At that time, Aju would be able to ensure that she would not be eroded by turbidity. No one could replace the righteousness of Bai Juan's military soul. At this moment, no matter how much he wanted to take his sister away, he could not be impulsive. Gu Rou. This person really made him want to kill someone. Since she insisted on coming up, then he shouldn't blame him for interfering in this matter. When Aju was 12 years old, the first thing he wanted to do was to uproot the entire Gu family. However, if Gu Rou had not mentioned it, he would not have thought of this problem. Did these people think that their Aju had no place to go? It wouldn't be a problem to bring them out for half a day. There were some things that Bai Juan could not notice. Then he would give the other party a warning. The Bai family was not Aju's only place. His little sister would also be liked by other people. Helian Qingshan had always been a black-bellied character, so she directly hung up the phone for Aju. Then he chuckled and handed his phone to Aju. Second brother, I have a phone. Aju doesn't understand why her second brother gave her another phone. Helian Qingshan rubbed Aju's head. This phone is not for you. I want you to use my phone to call Bai Juan and tell him that you have to go to the house of the person you like to do your homework after school today. You won't be home until later. Someone you like? Aju's eyes widened. Who? Helian Qingshan pointed at himself and curled his lips into a smile. Me. Aju was speechless. What? Don't you like second brother? Helian Qingshan's smile became even wider. It's still not convenient for you to tell him. Then give the phone to second brother after you dial it. Aju muttered. It doesn't seem right to say that you like someone. What's wrong? Helian Qingshan placed one hand on her sister's shoulder. My little sister is at the age where she should like someone, right? Aju looked at Helian Qingshan seriously. Woolly Buddha said that you can't break the precept of lust. Any woman is a tigress. Helian Qingshan was speechless. He finally knew why there was that email. It was basically a poison test by the temple. A good child even became enlightened later than others. If you like men, it's not considered breaking the precept of lust. Helian Qingshan pulled her hand and placed it on the phone. Compared to returning to the Bai family now, Aju naturally wanted to stay with second brother more. Moreover, she had never done homework or eaten with second brother. So very quickly, Aju dialed the number according to her memory. Bai Juan did not pick up. It was probably because it was an unfamiliar phone number. Aju used her phone to call again. Whose phone is vibrating? In the classroom, Li Hailu took out his phone and looked at it. There was no reaction. He turned around and looked at Bai Juan, who was thinking about something. Bai Juan took out his phone from the desk. He glanced at the caller ID and immediately picked up the call. Hello, little brother. You don't have to pick me up from school in the afternoon. I'm going to my friend's house to do my homework. I'll go back later. In the end, Aju didn't say anything about who she liked. Helian Qingshan listened beside her and smiled ambiguously. Bai Juan's fingers paused. Friend. It's me. Helian Qingshan reached out and took Aju's phone over. After hearing the voice on the other side, Bai Juan frowned heavily. The coldness between his lips was on the verge of erupting. Helian Qingshan. I really didn't expect young Master Bai to remember other people's names. Helian Qingshan smiled as she said, Don't worry, I won't do anything to Aju. Although I don't like your group of people, Aju is different. Aju is so cute, I can't wait to like her. Hearing this, Baijuan's eyes completely turned cold. Li Hailu was very close to Baijuan, so naturally, he could hear Helianqingqin's last sentence. He subconsciously looked into Baijuan's eyes. As expected, the hostility in his eyes could destroy everything. Li Hailu subconsciously said, "Fuck." Baijuan's voice was so deep that it seemed to be able to brew a storm. Helianqingqin, I'm warning you, you'd better send Aju back right now, or I won't let you off. Baijuan, you seem to have made a mistake about one thing. Helianqingqin laughed softly. Aju was not kidnapped by me. She willingly followed me. Otherwise, you can ask Aju. As she said this, Helianqingqin returned the phone. At this point, it should be enough. Although this was a little angry, if Baijuan had been more careful and made his surroundings not so complicated, Aju would not have been ostracized. Of course, he had to let Baijuan have a taste of this uncomfortable feeling. Because only through this method could he be sure whether Baijuan treated Aju as his sister, or if there were other feelings. Chapter 1209. If it was really just a younger sister, even if Aju liked him, they would not destroy someone else's relationship just because Aju liked him. A tough melon is not sweet. Although the people in the family were rude and unreasonable, such as father and brother, they still understood the basic principle of not forcing others, especially when it came to relationships. As long as Baijuan did not have that intention, their Aju did not have to stick to anyone. When the time came, her family would immediately come over to pick her up. On the Bai family's side, they should be grateful. But there was one thing. If that was really the case, in the future, they would avoid letting Aju see Baijuan again. After all, it was really difficult to forget the feelings of a childhood sweetheart. He did not want to see Aju sink into the memories of her childhood. The future was still very long. From a selfish point of view, as an older brother, Helianqingqin really did not want to see a scene like today again. Aju was eating alone at the table, while the other side was bustling with noise and excitement. This kind of feeling was the most hurtful. As an older brother, it was difficult for Helianqingqin not to be angry, but he still smiled on the surface. He said to Aju dotingly, "Aju, Baijuan suspects that I am abducting you." Hearing this, Aju immediately said, "Little brother, Brother Qingqin is not lying. I am the one who volunteered to go with him. I want to go to his house as a guest." Even through the phone, it was not difficult to tell that Aju was serious when she said this. Baijuan's fingers clenched tightly. Masterly could not bear to see him like that, so he could only lower his head and say to the phone, "Aju, you've only known that person for a day, and you're already saying that you want to go to his house as a guest. Do you know that this is very dangerous? Be good. The world of adults is not as simple as you think. No need." Aju also knew that Masterly was worried about her, so she said in a low voice, "I'm not a child anymore. I know the basics of who is good and who is bad. I'll go home after I finish my homework. Tell little brother that I won't go home for dinner." After saying that, Aju hung up the phone. After all, in that way, if she continued to talk, she would only hear more bad things about her second brother. She did not like others to say bad things about her second brother. Only she knew how much second brother doted on her. Li Hailu could not believe that Aju hung up the phone just like that. She was never like this in the past. What's more, he wouldn't say that he was going to visit a friend's house. Moreover, this friend could not be anyone else, but he had to choose a person who had provoked Baijuan as soon as he arrived. What the hell is going on? Li Hailu scratched his head in frustration. Shaolin looked at the strands of hair that fell in front of Baijuan's eyes. From this angle, he could not see Baijuan's expression at all. However, it was precisely because he could not see anything that he seemed even more lonely. Masterly still wanted to say something, but Baijuan stood up and put on the headphones that were still around his neck. He grabbed his school bag and walked out of the classroom. She couldn't attend the last 2 classes in the afternoon. Shaolin immediately followed him. Baijuan was on the phone, and his voice was very deep. "Check on Helianqingqin." "Yes, she's a new transfer student from our class. After you find her, Send me her address. In number 1 high school, every student would add their home address when they entered the school. It was actually not difficult to know where Enchanting lived. However, no one would have thought that Enchanting would add a fake address on the file. After Baijuan received this news, the bottle of BLK mineral water in his hand fell to the ground. Lock onto the location of his phone. Baijuan was really anxious. He was afraid that something would happen to Aju when he met a person who even had a fake address. However, people also knew that although Aju was small, there were not many people who could beat her. Unless she was willing, no one could take her away. Baijuan lowered his eyes. His hands under the white down jacket clenched tighter and tighter until they reached a certain point. Only then did he let go of his hand. The sky gradually darkened. The sudden heavy snow made the entire city look extremely beautiful. Enchanting was taking Aju to the supermarket. The place where he lived now was actually very close to the school. This school district house had been available for a long time, so that if anything happened to Aju, they could deal with it in time. What do you want to eat? I'll make it for you. Without outsiders, Enchanting looked even gentler. He was clean to begin with. He was clearly a modern person, but he always gave people a feeling that he was young and elegant. Now that he was wearing a pure white sweater, it made his temperament even more outstanding. No matter where he went, he would always be a top-notch school hunk. He pushed the shopping cart in the supermarket and let Aju sit inside. When he lowered his head and spoke to Aju, it had already attracted many people's attention. Oh my God, did you hear that handsome guy speak? His voice is so nice. Is he here to push his sister to buy things? I also want to have a brother like him. His sister is also very beautiful. Look at those round black eyes looking back and forth. There's even a cat on her head. Mommy, my heart is about to melt. Aju heard the voice beside her, but her attention was focused on Qingqin's words. Her big eyes were pleasantly surprised. Second brother, are you making it for me? Yes. Qingqin threw a baby cabbage into the shopping cart and smiled at Aju. I'll push you forward. Put whatever you want to eat first into the shopping cart. Okay. Aju's mood, which had been low for the whole day, finally improved. She just sat on the shopping cart. Whatever she pointed at, Qingqin took it. The siblings bought a whole cart of ingredients. For this reason, Aju seriously expressed her worry. Second brother, I eat more. Will I make you poor? They all said that second brother came to school on a bicycle, so he probably didn't have much money. Thinking about how her second brother always gave her a lot of pocket money every year for so many years, Aju felt more and more that she had dragged her second brother down. When Qingqin heard his sister's words, he couldn't help but laugh softly. Don't worry, the money on second brother's card is enough for you to eat for the rest of your life. What else do you want? No. Aju had always been a girl who knew how to save money. However, as her brother, Qingqin obviously hadn't bought enough. It wasn't easy for him to take his sister shopping. Even if they went to the supermarket, they still bought and bought. Aju stood obediently to the side. Qingqin saw the plush ears hanging in the supermarket. Without thinking, he took them off and put them on Aju's head. Do you like this? I like it. Aju nodded at the mirror. She looked extremely cute. Chapter 12:10. Qingqin was also happy to see this. Since she was already here, and it was winter, she might as well buy all the equipment that she needed to buy for Aju. Fluffy ears, cotton gloves with tiger claws and stacks of masks. The gloves and ears were all put on in the supermarket. Aju was wearing a school uniform, and with these things, she looked like a cosplayer who had just come down from a comic exhibition. She was beautiful and cute. That exquisite little face was already a plus point. Now that she was sitting on the back seat of the bicycle, with a lot of things in her arms, she attracted a lot of people to watch. Qingqin sat in front with a faint smile. She turned around and fixed Aju's crooked cat ears before stepping on the stirrups. It was just a very ordinary bicycle, but because the person riding it was Qingqin, the scene was surprisingly beautiful. The pure white sweater matched his face, that was stunning no matter when you looked at it. Snowflakes fell on his black hair, and the clean smile on his face was like the sun, hard to fade. Since they were near the school, of course, they would be seen by others. When the students walked out of the school gate in their school uniforms, they all stretched out their hands. Isn't that the handsome senior who just transferred here? Who's behind him? His sister? What sister? That's the sister of Schoolboy Bai. Ah, isn't this handsome guy at odds with Schoolboy Bai? I'm not sure, but don't you think that these two people are a good match? Look at their eyes, they're full of pink. For a moment, rumors spread throughout the entire campus like water waves. Shaolin was among that group of people, but unfortunately, he walked out too late and only had time to see Aju's back. Li Hailu was furious. Tell me, what does this Enchanting mean? Did she deliberately bring Aju around the school gate? Aju too. Why did she get on his car? Shaolin did not respond to him. He took out his phone and called Bai Juan without thinking. Hello, I saw Aju. You don't have to look for her. She is indeed fine. Shaolin paused for a moment before saying, she's with Enchanting. They're in Enchanting's car. They probably went to her house. The two of them bought a lot of things. There was suddenly no sound from Bai Juan's side. Less than 2 seconds later, Shaolin heard the beep of the disconnect. The more Li Hailu thought about this matter, the more sullen he felt. Enchanting's address couldn't be found. Bai Juan thought that Aju was in danger, but he didn't expect the result to be like this. He must be feeling bad now. He's in the Bai family now. There's a guest at home. Shaolin carried his backpack and glanced behind him. He did not say much and only said, let's go over too. Li Hailu nodded. That's all we can do for now. The guest of the Bai family was none other than Gu Rou or Old Master Gu. It would be Bai Juan's birthday in 2 days. Of course, the coming-of-age ceremony of the Bai family's only grandson was attended by many people from the upper class. The Bai and Gu families were discussing how to make Bai Juan's birthday party low-key and not lose face. Old Master Bai meant that the children were still in school, so they should not be too extravagant and wasteful. They should not let these things distract them. After all, the exam was coming. But even if that was the case, it wouldn't really be that simple to carry out. After all, Bai Juan's birthday was not his birthday alone. It was the exchange of power in the entire Bai family, so they could not be careless anywhere. But it was obvious that Bai Juan's mind was not on this today. Old Master Gu stopped and smiled. Bai Juan, the exam is coming soon. I'm a little tired from studying these few days. If you're tired, go and rest first. Let my girl accompany you. She's the best at making people happy. No need. Thank you, Grandpa Gu. Bai Juan stood up as he spoke. Grandpa, I'm going out for a while. Old Master Bai frowned. You're still going out at this time? I'm going to pick up Aju. Bai Juan lowered his head and put on his coat. He did not care about how heavy the snow was outside and wanted to rush out. Old Master Bai called someone to stop him and walked over with his dragon-headed walking stick. There are guests at home. If Aju wants to come back, she will call you. I've taught you since you were young that you have to know your limits when you do things. Now we're discussing your birthday, not someone else's. You can leave after you're done talking. Gu Rou also walked over at this time, as if she wanted to help him out. Grandpa Bai Juan is also worried about Aju, but it should be fine. I heard that Aju is with a friend, and will come back sooner or later. When Li Hailu and the others pushed open the door and walked in, they heard this sentence. Gu Rou gave him a look, indicating for him to stop Bai Juan and not make things more complicated. It was not that Li Hailu and Shaolin did not want Bai Juan to go, but they knew that Bai Juan was not in the right state. Moreover, where could they find him? The addresses left were all fake, and the phone's GPS could not be set. The strangest thing was that even the tracker on Aju's phone had lost its response. A few juniors pulled Bai Juan and brought him upstairs. Originally, the three of them did not want to bring Gu Rou along. Gu Rou stuck out her tongue helplessly and said, I have no choice. My grandfather asked me to come up and take a look. With such an excuse, they could not chase him away. Gu Rou was very smart. She did not talk to Bai Juan. Instead, she asked Li Hailu in a low voice. Hailu, I heard from my classmates that Aju followed that transfer student home. Could this be true? Li Hailu did not say anything. Guro let out a long sigh. She's too young. She doesn't know that her family will worry about her. When she comes back later, don't scold her. I'm worried that she will have reverse psychology. The more we scold her, the closer she will get to that transfer student. Li Hailu clenched his fists. He really did not understand how things turned out like this. The snow was still falling outside. The wind hit the glass, making a sound again and again. In the clean and bright semi-open kitchen, Enchanting cut the diced eggplant and crushed the tomatoes. With a crash, she put them into the pot. When the fragrance filled the air, the adorable Aju went over. She was in charge of getting the seasoning for her second brother. Enchanting used her chopsticks to pick up a piece of diced eggplant and put it in Aju's mouth. Then she asked her to scoop the rice herself. Aju ran. She took the chopsticks one moment and the rice cooker the next. She did not rest for a moment. When the 4 dishes were ready, the 2 siblings sat down. Aju first helped her brother scoop the rice. Then, she picked up her big bowl and buried her head in it. Enchanting did not move her chopsticks. Instead, she took out her phone and snapped a picture of her. In the photo, Aju still had furry ears. When she raised her head, her big eyes were filled with confusion. That bowl was even bigger than her face. It was the embodiment of perfect cuteness. Chapter 12:11. You don't look good. You look like a big foodie. This was Aju's evaluation of herself. During this time, she did not forget to continue feeding herself. Her cheeks were puffed up like a little hamster, and her eating style was very cute. Enchanting smiled and reached out to put his hand behind Aju. He turned the camera to selfie mode, and then with a click, another one was taken. But this time, it was a group photo of the 2 of them. In the group photo, Aju was like a kitten, narrowing her eyes as she ate. In order to cooperate with her, Enchanting narrowed his left eye handsomely. The black earrings were very eye-catching. In addition, the phone had its own photo special effects. The siblings had 2 cat ears on their heads. It was really very beautiful. Even through the screen, one could see the youthful and sweet aura that was overflowing from it. Taking a selfie with her brother was something that Aju had never done before. Enchanting doted on her. Only Aju could pull his face and make him make a series of funny expressions. All of these were taken on Aju's phone. Therefore, even when she returned to the Bai family, Aju was worried that her phone would disappear. Because her second brother had also said that he could only stay by her side for 7 days. Aju was still happy. She knew that her brothers could not get close to her and were worried that they would affect her. She was already very satisfied to be able to be together for 7 days. Enchanting stood outside the courtyard and watched Aju enter. He did not ask anyone to forge an identity for him. Even if he entered the Bai family now, it would not be a problem, but it was not the time yet. Aju returned to the Bai family alone. When she pushed open the door of the Bai family, it was very lively inside. It was as if they were having a meal. From afar, she could hear a series of light laughter. Today Aju is not here. I can finally eat meat in the Bai family. As expected of Auntie Wang's cooking, it smells good. The thick smell of meat in the living room was indeed very pleasant to others. But for Aju, it was really not easy to accept. She subconsciously took a step back, thinking that if she wanted to eat in the future, she would eat at school or eat with her second brother these few days. In the Bai family, it was nothing in the past. Now she should feel that it was somewhat inconvenient to be worried about her vegetarian diet. Yes, in the future, she would eat at second brother's place. Since second brother was no longer around, they could eat in the school cafeteria or eat the crepes sold at the school entrance. The crepes were cheap and delicious. As Aju thought about it, she nodded to herself. She was still holding a pile of things in her arms. Although the smell of meat didn't make her nauseous, she still felt a little conflicted. Recalling the mask that her second brother had bought for her, the child cleverly unwrapped one and put it on her face. Then, she lowered her head and began to change her slippers. Perhaps the people in the living room were too engrossed in their conversation, so no one noticed Aju's return. It was Vice Commander Zhang, who came in to deliver something. When he saw Aju, he was stunned. "Miss, young master has been looking for you. You're finally back." Before Vice Commander Zhang could finish his sentence, Bai Juan strode over from the living room. His chest was heaving, and his clear black and white eyes were looking at Aju, who was standing in front of him. Shaolin, Li Hailu and Gu Rou walked out as well. Old Master Gu and Old Master Bai were from the older generation. They did not move, and were still drinking tea in the living room. Aju was holding a lot of things in her arms. The gloves, mask, and the pair of cat ears on her head were obviously newly bought. Gu Rou immediately laughed. "Look, you guys are still worried about Aju. It seems that the transfer student treats Aju well. He even bought so many things for Aju." Aju ignored her. She only raised her eyes and said to Bai Juan, "I'm going upstairs." She carried her things and walked towards the stairs. The little white cat followed behind her obediently. Bai Juan's clenched hands loosened and loosened. Finally, he took a step forward and pulled her back. His voice was very deep and sounded a little hoarse. "Have you eaten? If you haven't, I'll go make something for you." "There's no need. I've eaten." Through the mask, Aju's voice sounded even more formal and polite. Bai Juan did feel something at that moment. For the past 2 days, he had always felt that something was wrong. That was politeness. She was clearly still a very obedient person, but she was no longer the Aju who liked to stick to him. She had actually learned to be polite in front of him. When Bai Juan thought of this, his eyes suddenly trembled. Even his heart also felt a painful stuffiness. He knew Aju better than anyone else. Even Gu Cheng, who had appeared before, had not made Bai Juan feel such a strong sense of uneasiness. Because no matter what Gu Cheng gave Aju had never accepted it. Aju was always very polite to outsiders. She would not easily accept anyone's things. Other than these brothers who had grown up with her, she would return whatever others gave her even if she accepted it. But today, the things she was holding in her hands all showed that the person who bought her these things was special to her. Special. As long as he thought of these 3 words, Bai Juan felt as if even breathing had become 100 times more uncomfortable. In the end, Old Master Bai was still worried. He walked over and picked Aju up with a smile before saying, "Why is little Aju so cute today? You even bought a pair of cat ears?" "It was Brother Qingchen who bought it for me." Aju was really the best in everything. She immediately took out her phone and showed it to Old Master Bai. "Grandpa Bai, look at this. This is Brother Qingchen. Isn't he very good looking?" Aju definitely took after her big brother Bailey Shangxia. To put it simply, Bailey Shangxia was a maniac who showed off his brother, and Aju was a maniac who showed off her brother. In short, both the brother and sister were showing off Helian Qingchen. Old Master Bai lowered his head and looked at the photo. He could not help but feel a little absent-minded. It was strange. Why did this youth look a little familiar? "What's his surname?" Old Master Bai asked. Aju said Helian. "His name is Helian Qingchen." Speaking of which, she also liked her second brother's name very much. She just did not know who gave her name. Why was she called Jiao? To be honest, she felt that he was too lazy to give her a name. He casually gave her a number, and it was a very meaningless number. Achu. In the 8 hells of the demon world, glaciers, snow, and spider lilies bloomed. Bailey Jiaju's slender fingers supported his lower jaw, as he sat on the demon's throne that was filled with corpses. His sudden movement caused the demons who were still swimming like goldfish below to raise their heads in unison. Fuck, what was going on? The emperor actually sneezed? The fire Qilin also stood at the side, swinging its flaming tail. After hesitating for a long time, it said, "Master, what are you doing? Could it be that you missed the princess consort?" Cold. Bailey Jiaju's voice was very faint as he gave it 2 words. The fire Qilin was speechless. You, a great demon who had lived for thousands of years, would catch a cold? Who were you lying to? Chapter 12:12. Why? Is it strange that I caught a cold? Baligaju stood up. His half-open black robe brushed across the ground, and a terrifying demonic aura greeted him. The fire Qilin immediately shook its head. The group of demons also shook their heads. The demon world was in turmoil. But Ligaju did not look at them. He walked into the hell of wisdom. With every step he took, black feathers would fall. This was indeed a kingdom of death. Blue bouquets and a river that spread out. Countless undead floated on it. At the end of the river was an ancient divine beast called Tunshin. It seemed to have fallen asleep. It just lay by the river and lowered its tail into the river. Everything in the demon world seemed to be not to be trifled with. However, some people did not know that she had really provoked someone she should not have provoked. 3,000 feet above, the world was noisy. In the Bai family's hall, a Jew was still looking at her phone with old Master Bai. Bai Juan and the others were standing at the side. Of course, they also saw the group photo inside. In the photo, a Jew was being held in Enchanting's arms. Both of them had special effects. There was a red dot on their noses, 3 beards on their faces, and a pair of pink and white ears on their heads. They looked like 2 cats. Not only would Enchanting's appearance in the photo not diminish his temperament, but it would also make him appear more agile and handsome. Even Gu Rou could not help but chuckle and say, "This transfer student is really good looking." Bai Juan clenched his hands tightly and looked at a Jew, who treated the photo in the phone as a treasure. He did not say anything. Old Master Bai patted a Jew's head. "If a Jew is not sleepy, don't go up first. We are talking about your little brother's birthday party. You should also listen. When someone comes, Grandpa Bai is afraid that he won't be able to take care of you." A Jew nodded and sat down at the side. She was still wearing a mask, but she looked obedient. In fact, a Jew had always been sensible. This was not because of her personality, but because of her upbringing since she was young. As long as the guest didn't choke her, she wouldn't embarrass him. Even if she didn't like this person, she understood that this was the Bai family after all. The Bai family wanted to befriend someone, so she couldn't ruin their relationship just because she didn't like him. Old Master Bai thought that since a Jew had returned, that brat's heart should be able to settle down. He took advantage of the time to talk about some details of the birthday banquet. A Jew listened attentively. In the middle, there would be a segment where the little brothers and friends gathered to play. They were all young men and women between the ages of 17, 18, and 20. It should not be appropriate for her to go. Old Master Gu was still discussing with Old Master Bai, and felt that this plan was not bad. A Jew didn't say anything either. She secretly decided that after the birthday party was over, she would give the gifts she had bought to her little brother. After Old Master Gu and Old Master Bai finished discussing, they brought Bai Juan to the study. It seemed that the Gu family was going to stay at the Bai family's house for the night. A Jew lowered her head and packed her things. She also planned to go back to her room. However, Gu Rou spoke at this moment. "It's indeed not bad to celebrate alone, but a Jew is still young, so it's not convenient for her to follow us. A Jew, why don't you go and tell your brother to cancel the celebration alone? It doesn't matter if we play or not. The most important thing is that you have to be happy. Don't get into a fight with your brother on your birthday." "I won't." A Jew raised her eyes and looked at Gu Rou. Her eyes were very clear, as if she could see through everything. Li Hailu was not thinking about whether to celebrate alone or not. It was about what happened today. "A Jew, you and Enchanting just left like that. Have you considered Bai Juan's feelings?" A Jew turned her body to the side. She was still wearing a mask on her face. Facing these questions, she did not say anything. She just buried her head and put the furry cat claw gloves into her school bag. Li Hailu's voice became low. "Bai Juan really dotes on you too much." "Hailu." Shaolin grabbed Li Hailu's arm. Li Hailu struggled. "Let go of me. I have to tell a Jew." You guys are with your friends and I'm with my friends. What's so difficult about this?" A Jew's gaze indifferently interrupted Li Hailu's words. "I won't be like you guys and deny a person just because of a few words from others. I know very well who is really good to me." Li Hailu really did not expect a Jew to talk to him like this. Her small face was still cute, but the look in her eyes was different. Li Hailu scratched his hair in frustration. "A Jew, I didn't mean to blame you. I was anxious." "Anxious, do you understand?" "I understand." A Jew thought for a moment and reached out her hand. She tiptoed and touched Li Hailu's head. Li Hailu was also worried that if he could not explain it clearly, a Jew would ignore him. He loved a Jew very much. It was because he loved Aju very much that he saw her abandon her brothers for another person who appeared out of nowhere. That was why Lihailu was so angry. However, he did not know that the key problem was not this. Alright, since the misunderstanding has been resolved, everyone shouldn't be so distressed. Gu-ro smiled faintly at the side. Let's talk about the birthday party. When the time comes, there will be a lot of people. Originally, it was best to do a Western-style buffet, but there will be meat in every dish. If a Jew really can't eat meat here, I'll tell Grandpa bye, and we'll change it to something else. How about it? Although Western-style food was very high-class, a Jew could not eat it. There was nothing she could do. A Jew turned her head and looked at the person in front of her, who was smiling brightly. She had told herself many times that she had to get along well with her little brother's girlfriend. After all, her little brother could not be her little brother alone. Although it was very uncomfortable to say such things, so much so that she would still feel a little sad at night. But since her little brother had chosen this person, she would give them at least some respect. But it was obvious that this person did not need her respect. However, she also knew very well that some people could not always accommodate her. When she first entered the door, she learned that they all wanted to eat meat. Aju did not understand. She had never forced anyone to eat vegetarian with her. Why did Gu-ro say that everyone was taking care of her as long as she was happy? It sounded like she was being unreasonable. Don't worry about me. Aju put her backpack on her shoulder. You can do whatever you want at the birthday party. After saying that, she did not stop and went straight upstairs. Chapter 12-13. After walking to the room, Aju bent her small body and took out all the gifts she had bought for Baijuan. Then she counted them there. After counting them, she put them back where they were. She did not know why, but she had clearly grown up. But at this moment, she really missed her mother and brothers. Aju opened the scripture and read a paragraph. Then, she stared at her phone in a daze for a while. On the screen was the scene of her second brother hugging her and meowing like a cat. Aju looked at it and laughed. Her actions were very cute as she kissed the phone. Then she whispered, "Second brother, see you tomorrow." It was probably because she was too tired from playing with Enchanting today. They went shopping, bought things and took photos. Aju had not gone to the bathroom to wash up yet. She fell asleep on the desk just like that. The faint light shone down and shone on her face. It was very clean and fair, as if even the tiny hair on her face could be seen clearly. When Baijuan pushed the door open and entered, this was the scene he saw. Following that, his footsteps could not help but slow down a lot in order not to disturb Aju. Baijuan did not take a shower either. When he sat in the study and listened to his grandfather and the others talk, he was also absent-minded. It was not until he saw the person lying in the room that his heart began to slowly calm down. Baijuan was wearing a light blue sweater. Such clothes had always been very picky, but when he wore it, he did not feel out of place at all. Instead, it made him look even more handsome and noble. He picked up his cotton jacket and walked to Aju's side without batting an eyelid. He put it on the child's shoulder. Then, he squatted down and raised his head to look at the little face that was sleeping soundly. He reached out and wiped away the dirt on her face. Then he curled his lips into a smile. Aju had a problem when she was asleep, which was that she liked to chant scriptures. When she was young, Baijuan would often tease her with this matter. Looking at her small mouth constantly moving, and her cheeks bulging, she was like a little squirrel. She was very cute. It was the same now. Baijuan poked Aju's pear blossom dimples with his finger, and curled his lips again. Then, he bent down with a faint smile, and wanted to carry her up. Just as he exerted force, he realized that she was still holding a phone in her other hand. The phone was not locked, and the person on the screen was Enchanting. Baijuan's figure suddenly stopped, and his hand unconsciously exerted force. He knew very well what it was like to like someone. No matter what, he wanted to see that person, that small figure. He recalled the days when the two of them were together when they were young. At that time, Aju would always obediently follow by his side. Her small hand tugged at his clothes, and the other hand held a steamed bun. When did he start to change? What's so good about Enchanting? Why do you value her so much? Aju, tell me, why can't I? Baijuan lowered his eyes to look at the person he had placed on the bed. His voice was so low that it seemed to be filled with infinite wetness. His black hair fell down and covered his eyes. The next day, when Aju woke up, there was no one by her side. Someone covered her with a blanket. Aju didn't need to think to know that it was the little brother who covered her. She rolled up, changed into her school uniform and shoes, carried her school bag, and went downstairs. Other than Gu Chung, the rest of the Gu family were sitting at the dining table, chatting and laughing. Before Aju walked over, she heard Gu Rou say to Auntie Wang, "Auntie Wang, the shrimp wonton you made is really delicious. There's also the beef patty. It's crispy on the outside and soft on the inside. The feeling of biting it is super good. I used to only like Western food. It seems that I have to try more Chinese food in the future, provided that these are all made by Auntie Wang." Auntie Wang smiled and said, "Western food is not as delicious as Chinese food. The more you eat, the more delicious it is. Miss Gu, you eat first. I'll go and fish out the noodles and use beef as toppings. Young master likes to eat this." "Auntie Wang, when we weren't around in the past, did Baijuan not eat meat?" Gu Rou asked indirectly. Auntie Wang was also unintentional. "That's right. Young master dotes on Mississippi. It's been a long time since meat dishes appeared on this table. Baijuan is really working hard. He's always accommodating another person." Gu Rou raised her eyebrows. Auntie Wang smiled. "When these two people live together, one will definitely accommodate the other. Moreover, young master is very happy." Auntie Wang is right. Baijuan has always been good to Aju. After all, she is his younger sister. After Gu Rou said this, she scooped up another wonton and ate it. "I want to eat another bowl. It's too delicious." Listening to this conversation, Aju stood at the stairs and paused for a moment before changing her direction. She couldn't smell such a big meat smell. She might as well go to the school gate for breakfast. She wore cat ears on her head and cat claw gloves on her hands. Aju's outfit was undoubtedly very eye-catching. In addition, there was a white cat lying on her shoulder. In the morning, the vicinity of the school was especially lively. There was a lot of food to eat, and the line was like a street. Aju looked at this, asked for a little, looked at that, and asked for a little more. In the end, she thought for a while, and asked for 10 steamed buns and cabbage that she thought were the best. Everyone, don't misunderstand. These 10 were not for her to eat. She wanted to buy them for Enchanting. Aju knew very well that the people at home could not get close to her. So the only person who could come to the school was definitely her second brother. Yesterday, when she was eating, she had noticed that other than her second brother, there was not even a cook at home. In these 7 days, she had to help her eldest brother take good care of her second brother. Therefore, in a short while, under the gaze of the entire school, Aju carried a large pile of breakfast to the high school section of No. 1 high school. On the other side, the lively Bai family. After taking a shower, Baijuan changed into his school uniform and went downstairs. He carried his black school bag on one shoulder and walked towards the living room. Gu Rou and the 2 old men were sitting at the dining table, but Aju was not there. "Where's Aju?" Baijuan asked Auntie Wang as he took a sip of the milk on the dining table. Auntie Wang did not say anything. Gu Rou chuckled and said, "She should have left early. I just saw her go out. She didn't even eat breakfast?" Baijuan looked at the vegetable bun that had not even been touched. He then looked at the other plate and frowned. "The pie made today is filled with meat?" Auntie Wang knew what the young master meant. She quickly walked over and said, "Old Master Gu and Miss Gu have just returned from abroad. They are not used to eating Chinese vegetarian food." Baijuan heard this and did not say anything else. He put his school bag on his left shoulder. Gu Rou immediately stood up. "Baijuan, Auntie Wang made your favorite beef noodles. You can leave after you finish eating. I'll leave with you." Old Master Gu heard his granddaughter's words and looked over with a smile. Gu Rou still had a smile on her face, and her eyes were jumping with mischief. She knew that with her grandfather watching by the side, Baijuan would not reject her. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.